After being toyed with and tormented by the three Shin sisters for 3 days, I dragged my battered, exhausted body to the Shin residence. Ko Ka-nchan suppressing his pain, his gaze steady as he looked directly at the elders seated in the place of honor, each word sharp and clear. Old madam, I have made my decision. The person I choose for this marriage alliance is Shin Inh. Upon hearing this, old Madam Shin's eyes widened in shock, and the teacup in her hand trembled slightly. Old Madam Shin frowning, her tone filled with disbelief as she leaned forward. Ka-nchan, did you misspeak? The Inh is the biological aunt of these three girls. In terms of seniority, she is a generation above you. In truth, I felt completely unmoored, my heart floating a void of uncertainty. If I had truly been driven to the edge, I had no other choice. Ko Ka-nchan forcing a bitter, strained smile, taking a deep breath to gather his courage as he explained slowly, Old madam, the marriage pact between the Ko and Shin families has never strictly stipulated that I must choose someone from the same generation, like Shin Moen-ji-kai-ti, Shin Da-hyen, or Shin Ka-nhu, has it? Besides, all three of them despise me. I truly do not want to force anyone, nor do I wish to invite further humiliation upon myself. Ko Ka-nchan taking a step forward, his eyes rimmed with red, looking at her with a gaze full of desperate entreaty. Old madam, I beg of you. Could you please ask her for me? Ask if she is willing to enter this alliance with me? Old Madam Shin observed my haggard and pitiable state and let out a long, heavy sigh. Old Madam Shin, her gaze a mix of kindness and pity as she gently patted the back of my hand to reassure me, good child, do not be anxious. Inh is currently abroad on business. Let me call her, and asked. My heart hammered with unease. Hearing each ring of the phone, I felt as though my heart were dangling over a precipice. All surrounding noise seemed to vanish. After a moment, a steady female voice came from the other end, carrying a characteristic distance and authority. After old Madam Shin briefly summarized the situation, the other end of the line suddenly fell silent. The few short seconds of waiting felt like an entire century. My mind went blank, and the ringing in my ears made it almost impossible to hear what she was saying. After a conversation that felt eternal, old Madam Shin hung up. Old Madam Shin, her face relaxing into a gentle smile as she nodded at me regarding this marriage. Inh has agreed. Since that is the case, our families will soon select an auspicious date to hold the wedding for you two. Hearing those words, my heart shook violently. Like a drowning man clutching a lifebuoy, my humiliation vanished in an instant, replaced by a surge of radiant joy. Ko Ka-nchan so moved that his eyes brimmed with tears, nodding vigorously, yes, thank you, old madam. I grew up alongside the three Shin sisters. Since I was a child, my parents had drilled the idea into my head sooner or later I would marry one of them. Last year, during a horrific earthquake that shook the nation, I risked my life, charging into the ruins to save the three of them. When I was finally pulled out, I was covered in wounds, with several broken ribs, having nearly lost my life. Yet, in return for that sacrifice, they treated me with coldness and cruelty. The reason was simple: the person they loved was Lam Hao, the son of the Shin family's maid. Because of him, none of the three wanted anything to do with me, but the most ridiculous and ironic part was this: the reason they were infatuated with Lam Hao was their belief that he had risked his life to save them in that earthquake. Meanwhile, the truth was plain: the person who brought them back from the brink of death was me. Just as I was falling into despair from their rejection, the eldest sister, Shin Moen-ji-kai-ti, unexpectedly sent me a text. She said the alliance was unavoidable, so she would take responsibility and marry me, telling me to meet her at the Civil Affairs Bureau to register. Receiving that message, I was overjoyed. Clutching my identification documents, I ran to wait outside the bureau. Under a torrential downpour, I stood like a fool, braving the freezing rain for an entire day. But in the end, she never showed up. The result was a high fever that lasted a day and a night. Yet the next day, I received a call from the second sister, Shin Da-hyen. Shin Da-hyen, her voice mocking over the phone, filled with malicious laughter. Ko Ka-nchan, I heard you waited for my big sister from dawn till dusk in the rain. Are you really that desperate for a wife? Tell you what, if you can find a pair of rings I buried in the flower garden, I'll humble myself and marry you. And like the fool I was, I believed her once more. I frantically dug through the dirt for a long day, my fingertips raw and my fingernails broken and bleeding. Finally, I realized she was just deceiving me, treating me like a dog for her amusement. But now, it was all over. The marriage to Shin Inh was set. Finally, I would no longer have to bow and scrape before those three sisters. I had just returned to my villa before I could even change out of my mud-stained clothes, when frantic, angry footsteps echoed outside. The door was kicked open. Shin Moen-ji-kai-ti barged in first, her face as dark as the bottom of a pot, her sharp eyes glaring at me. Shin Moen-ji-kai-ti pointing directly at my face. shouting as her beautiful features contorted in rage. Koka-Nachan, I've told you countless times, I do not want to marry you, yet you still haven't given up on forcing this marriage, even daring to go straight to grandmother to demand a wedding? Are you really that starved for a wife? Shin Da-Han stepped in right behind her. Shin Da-Han crossing her arms, her once clear eyes now filled with disgust and impatience, her voice cold and cutting. If I recall correctly, I've also told you 1,000 times the one I love is Lam Hao. As a young master of the Ko family, how can you be so thick-skinned and shameless as to stalk people like this? Following last was the youngest, Shin Ka-Nhu. Shin Ka-Nhu, her delicate brows knit tightly, her chin lifted with her trademark containable arrogance, her voice demanding and irritated. Speak, running to my house crying and begging like that between the three of us. Which one did you try to force into marriage? I stood tall, my gaze calm as it swept over the three faces that looked nearly identical but possessed entirely different temperaments. The old wounds had finally turned into calluses. Koka-Nachan, his tone cold and flat, without a hint of emotion between the three of you. I chose no one. Shin Ka-Nhu stunned, her frown deepening, her eyes reflecting suspicion. What do you mean? Among the Shin descendants of H, there are only the three of us. If you didn't choose us, who else could you possibly choose? Shin Da-Han taking a step forward, looking me up and down with contempt, her voice biting and hostile. Since we were children, you've followed us around like a puppy, always begging for affection. Now you have the nerve to say you chose no one? Koka-Nachan, what kind of playing hard to get game is this? Shin Mo-Kt rubbing her temples with exhaustion and distaste, her voice a cold warning. Koka-Nachan, listen carefully. No matter what distraction you're trying to pull today, the three of us will never like you. Give up. Hearing those insults, I felt hollow. There was no pain left. I took a deep breath. Koka-Nachan, a faint, mocking smirk playing on his lips, responding leisurely. What law states that a marriage alliance must be within the same generation? The person I chose is. Before I could finish, the door burst open again. A Shin family bodyguard, face pale and drenched in sweat, rushed in frantically, cutting me off. Bodyguard panting, reporting urgently, his voice trembling. Young ladies, it's bad, Mr. Lam Hao. He somehow heard you were about to be married off the young Master Ko. He is threatening to commit suicide. At the mention of Lam Hao and suicide, the faces of all three arrogant queens instantly transformed. Absolute panic and worry flooded their eyes. Without a word, they all turned on their heels to rush out. But after 2 steps, Shin Mo-Kt suddenly halted, as if remembering something. She whipped around, throwing me a sharp look full of resentment and utter loathing. Shin Mo-Kt gritting her teeth, directing her fury at me. Koka-Nachan, open your eyes and look at what you've done. Listen well, if you dare tell grandmother you chose me, then on our wedding day, I will certainly run away. I will make you lose all face and turn you into the laughing stock of this entire city. In our hearts, there is only Lam Hao. Even if you use petty schemes to force a marriage, we will absolutely never acknowledge you as our husband. With those heartless words, she turned and hurried out with her sisters to save their dream lover. I stood frozen in place, quietly watching their retreating backs. The corners of my mouth curled into a truly mocking and amused smile. Run away from the wedding? Refuse to acknowledge my status? You're worrying far too much. The alliance is set. From now on, when I enter the Shin household, I will have only one status in relation to you. And that is your elder. The next day, when I opened my phone, the first thing I saw was Lam Hao's latest post. The man who was supposedly crying and threatening suicide last night was now leisurely posting a boastful status. What does it feel like to be pampered by 3 high-born young ladies? This status was accompanied by 3 photos. The first, Shin Mo-Kt, who always wore a cold, heartless expression, was now cradling him in her arms, patiently blowing on a spoonful of porridge to feed him. The second, Shin Da-Han, the doctor who was always cold and composed, was sitting on the edge of the bed, her hands tightly clutching his. The last, Shin Ka-Nhu, the arrogant, unruly socialite, was kneeling on one knee before him, her eyes full of pity as she carefully applied medicine to his wrist. Just as I was about to dismiss it with a cold smile, there was a knock at my front door. Standing there was the Shin family butler. Butler bowing respectfully, his attitude very measured. Young Master Ko, the old madam has had an auspicious date selected. Both families have agreed on the 5th of next month as the wedding day. All preparations on the Shin family side will be handled thoroughly. You only need to make the final decisions. Also, these are the keys to the new marital home that the young miss asked me to bring to you. You are free to decorate it as you wish. Having said that, he produced a property transfer agreement and a set of keys, placing them carefully on the table before me. Butler explaining softly, "Oh, and the head of the house is still abroad on important business, but she will arrange to be back in time for the wedding. Please rest easy, young Master Ko." After delivering the message, the butler bowed and departed. I stood in silence, clutching the keys. The cold metal gradually warmed and in my palm. My mood stabilized. I went on an excited shopping spree for decorations and hired help to clean the new house. I personally pasted the bright red double happiness characters onto the windows. Watching the Merrill home take shape beautiful and warm, my heart began to race with nerves. Shin Yin was not of my generation. Growing up, my impression of her was summed up in one word: awe. A powerful woman, decisive and ruthless in the business world, was now about to become my wife. After returning home, a servant brought me an invitation to an auction, along with a catalog. I wasn't in the mood, so I flipped through it idly. Until the last page, where Lady S wristwatch immediately caught my eye. The watch was named Everlasting Love, signifying a love that lasts until death. It was personally commissioned by Princess Anne in the last century for her lover. There was only one in the world. Just a glance at its exquisite and elegant design made me feel it was perfectly suited for Shin Yin's noble, cold aura. I wanted to prepare a meaningful gift for her on our wedding day. Thus, the following day, I dressed in a formal suit and attended the auction, determined to bring that watch home. Entering the hall, I walked straight toward my seat. However, just as I was about to sit down, the chair behind me was violently jerked away. Crash! I fell backward, my back and tailbone slamming hard against the marble floor. A sharp, bone-shattering pain radiated from my spine, turning my face white and breaking a cold sweat on my forehead. In a previously quiet room, bursts of mocking laughter erupted from all sides. Suppressing the pain, I looked up to see the three Shin sisters standing over me, looking down with their arms crossed. Shinmo NGKT, her eyes narrowing mockingly. Didn't you boldly declare yesterday that you'd never choose us? My, how quickly you've crawled back here to desperately seek our attention. Shin hot and a cold smirk on her face. What a waste of my time, thinking you actually intended to let go. And yet, we just received news that the Shin family is holding a wedding in half a month. Well, which of the three of us did you scheme to force into marriage? Shin Ka-Nachu, her expression dark, her teeth gritted as she tapped her toe on the floor. I don't care who you chose, but let me tell you, today's fall is just a small warning. If you actually dare use tricks to marry one of us, you won't have a single day of peace afterward. You will suffer 100,000 times worse than today. As the three finished speaking, the room erupted in whispers. How pathetic. A prestigious young master of the Ko family being humiliated in public like this. It has been years, and none of the Shin sisters have ever looked at him. If I were him, I'd have given up long ago. Look at that, suffering like this before they're even married. If he has thick-skinned enough to go through with it, who knows how miserable and shameful his life in the Shin house will be. The people around us watched the spectacle, pointing and whispering with a mix of mockery and pity. I took a deep breath, braced my hands on the floor to stand out, calmly pulled the chair back, and sat down. Ko-Ka-Nachen looking up at them, his voice steady and clear. I will say this one last time. In half a month, I am indeed getting married. But my bride is not any of you. Shinmo and GGT frowning, looking confused. Aren't you forming an alliance with our family? Ko-Ka-Nachen expressionless, nodding I am. Shinda hot and laughing with contempt, shaking her head. One moment you say that's not us, the next you admit it's our family. In the Shin house, other than the three of us, who else could you possibly marry? What kind of distraction are you trying to pull now? Don't dream that this cheap tactic will make us jealous or change our minds. Shin Ka-Nachu impatiently waving her hand. Listen, Ko-Ka-Nachen, we don't like you. Our hearts belong only to Lam Hao. Whatever game you're playing, drop the pathetic act. I was about to respond when the auction bell rang. Auctioneer striking the gavel. The charity auction will now begin. First, I would like to introduce the first item. At that moment, Lam Hao approached from behind. He hurriedly reached out to take the hands of the three sisters, looking gentle and understanding. Lam Hao softly advising, his voice intentionally loud enough for me to hear. Mo and GKT to Hyan Ka-Nachu, please, calm down. After all, young Master Ko and the Shin family have a pact. Eventually, he will legally become the husband of one of you. Don't be so hard on him, he is quite pitiable. The three Shin sisters in unison, looking at Lam Hao with tender eyes. Lam Hao, the one we love is you. Even if we reforce to marry him, he'll just be a husband in name only, a puppet who can never compare to your place in our hearts. With that, they pulled Lam Hao to their seats, happily competing to bid on expensive jewelry for him. I completely ignored the theatrical display, sitting quietly as I waited for the final item. When the Everlasting Love watch appeared and the opening bid was announced, I didn't hesitate to raise my paddle repeatedly. My actions immediately caught the sisters' attention. They turned to look at me, whispering. They likely assumed that this expensive watch, symbolizing eternal devotion, was something I was bidding on to gift one of them. How laughable. Ultimately, I won the auction. holding the velvet box containing the precious timepiece, feeling its weight and exquisite quality. I couldn't help but imagine it on Shin Min's pale wrist. As the auction ended, I had what I wanted. I turned to leave but suddenly heard Lam Hao's weak moaning. Lam Hao pale-faced, clutching his stomach, his voice a faint pain whisper KT, Han, NHU, my stomach suddenly hurts. Maybe my gastritis is acting up again. Could you help me go buy some medicine? Hearing this, the three of them panicked. Absolute worry was etched on their faces. They quickly divided tasks. Shinmo and GKT helped Lam Hao to a rest area, Shin Tahan ran to the nearest pharmacy, and Shinka and Hu frantically called their private doctor. However, as soon as the three were out of sight, Lam Hao, who had just been too weak to stand, suddenly changed his expression. He stood tall, a smug smirk on his face, and stepped forward to block my path. Lam Hao, his tone mocking as he eyed the watch box in my hand. Young Master Ko, that's a beautiful watch. Mind letting me take a look? After all, you're planning to give it to one of the sisters later anyway. Let me see who it would suit best, shall I? Koka and Hn looking at him coldly, hiding the box behind my back, refusing firmly. It's not for them. Get out of my way. Lam Hao, his face stiffening for a moment before he burst into a mocking laugh. Young Master Ko, don't you think this distraction tactic of yours is getting old? Honestly, you sacrificed so much for them, yet they won't even spare you a glance. Naturally, a cornered dog will try anything to get attention. Before I could react, Lam Hao suddenly lunged and snatched the box from my hand. Smash! He ruthlessly threw the box onto the marble floor. In an instant, the watch worth hundreds of millions was shattered. The glass was crushed and diamond fragments scattered across the floor. I stood frozen, staring in disbelief at the gift I had intended for Shen Inh. Rage surged within me, clouding my reason. I swung my hand, slap. A sharp, powerful slap landed squarely on Lam Hao's face. The force made him stumble back, a trickle of blood appearing at the corner of his mouth. Lam Hao instinctively clutching his swelling cheek, stunned that I actually dared to hit him. My anger wasn't satiated. I gritted my teeth and prepared for a second strike when my wrist was suddenly grabbed and jerked back. Stop it right now. Koka and Hn, the three Shin sisters, had returned unnoticed. All three stared at me as if they wanted to devour me alive. Seeing his support had arrived, Lam Hao immediately played the victim. Tears streamed down his face like rain on pear blossoms, looking utterly aggrieved. Lam Hao sobbing, clutching Shin Tahan's sleeve. Mo and GKT, Tahan, Knh, just let young Master Ko hit me, it's all my fault. I was careless and dropped the watch he worked so hard to win for you. It's only natural that he's angry that he hit me. Hearing this, heartache filled their faces. Shin Tahan stepped forward, gently wiping Lam Hao's tears. Shin Tahan, her voice sweet and soothing. Lam Hao, be good, don't cry. If it's broken, it's broken. It was just a trashy item he used to try and please us. It's not worth a single one of your tears. Shinka and Hu, her expression frigid as she turned to me with fury. You dare to lay hands on our lover over a broken watch? Koka and Hn, you've really lost it. When you were bidding on it to give to us, did it ever occur to you that we would have thrown it in the trash anyway? Jinmo and GKT, her face darkening with rage, calling the bodyguards throw him directly into the pool outside. This is his punishment for touching Lam Hao. The bodyguards obeyed immediately. Before I could react, two large men gripped my arms, dragged me to the outdoor pool area, and hurled me in. Splash! With a spray of water, my body was submerged in the freezing liquid. Worse yet, I didn't know how to swim. Koka and Hn flailing in panic, water choking my throat. Help, save me. Cough, cough. The more I struggled, the more water filled my nose and lungs, causing a stinging burn. My strength drained away, and my kicking grew weak. The scene on the shore became distorted and blurry through the water. As I was losing consciousness, I could still clearly hear the cold conversation from above. Lam Hao, his voice trembling slightly, faking concern. Young Master Ko, it looks like he can swim. Will he be alright? Shin Tahan and cold laughter. He's fine. He's a professional at faking things. Now he's faking drowning just to use a pity play to get us to jump in and save him. Shinmo and GKT snorting coldly. Lam Hao, you read too kind. He just hit you so brutally, and you're still speaking up for him? He deserves what he gets. Shinka and Hu, her voice cruel and devoid of warmth. Exactly. It would be better if he just drowned down there. That way, there'd be no damn marriage pact forcing us anymore. Hearing those words, my heart turned to ice. Total despair took hold. Years of friendship as childhood sweethearts were worth less than a single frown from that pretender. Darkness swallowed my vision and my body sank to the bottom of the pool. I lost consciousness completely. When I woke again, the sharp scent of antiseptic filled my nose. I struggled to open my eyes and sat up. My private doctor stood by the bed, his eyes filled with pity. Doctor sighing and shaking his head, young Master Ko, you really cannot continue being this reckless with your life. Last time, during the earthquake, you broke 2 ribs and suffered severe internal damage. Saving those 3 sisters, you still haven't fully recovered. With such a weak constitution, how could you stay submerged for so long? You nearly lost your life this time. I remained silent. I had to stay in the hospital for 3 days of Roman forward trips and observation. The day I was discharged, the first thing I did wasn't to go home and rest, but to stop by a flower shop. I hurried to the marital home, intending to finish the decorations to welcome Shen Yuan. However, the moment I opened the door with my key, I couldn't believe my eyes. The home I had meticulously cleaned and decorated with all my heart was now a chaotic mess. The warm red curtains, the silk ribbons, and the double happiness signs on the glass had all been torn to shreds and scattered across the floor. In their place, the house was filled with pink and white balloons. A banner in the center of the living room read, "Happy 23rd birthday, Lam Hao." The cute matching items I had bought were sprayed with whipped cream and tinsel. Loud, deafening music shook the walls. A crowd of wealthy young socialites in glamorous outfits, holding expensive champagne, were laughing and chasing each other through my living room. Seeing this, I felt my heart stop, and blood rushed to my head. I slammed my bouquet onto the floor, pushed through the crowd, and walked straight to the sound system, cold-bloodedly yanking the power cord. Silence. The sudden quiet made everyone stop. The 3 Shen sisters, standing at the center of the party, turned with looks of annoyance and glared at me. Ko Ka and Achin, suppressing an exploding rage, hands balled into fists, voice trembling. Why did you dare hold a birthday party in my marital home? Shin Mo and GKT stepping forward, frowning with arrogance and indifference. This property is under the Shin family name. We hold Lam Hao's party wherever we please. Do you have a problem with that? Shin Ha and a cold smile, shrugging. Ko Ka and Achin, it's not like you were going to use this house anyway. Even if you marry one of us, none of us will ever step foot in here to live with you. We might as well let Lam Hao use it for a party rather than letting it go to waste. Chin Ka and Hu, hands on hips, scoffing. It's an honor for this house that Lam Hao chose to celebrate here. What are you getting so upset about? Lam Hao approached, clutching a pile of gift boxes. Lam Hao's eyes shimmering with fake innocence as he intentionally showed off. Young Master Ko, look, this is a custom-made Italian suit Mo and GKT gave me. There's only one in the world, and these are the keys to a new yacht Ha and just bought me. Oh, and this suburban manor is a gift from Ka and Hu. We should all go play there sometime, don't you think? He paraded the items like treasures, emphasizing each expensive gift. Lam Hao tilting his head innocently. They treat me so well. Not only did they give me all this, but they also let me use the marital home for my party. You don't mind, do you? Since you're here, why not stay for a drink? My patience had reached its limit. The veins on my forehead throbbed with fury. Ko Ka and Achin shouting, his voice echoing through the room. I have told you many times, my fiancé is not any of you. This is not your marital home. By what right do you bring strangers here to destroy it? Shinmo and GKT rolling their eyes, snapping back. Ko Ka and Achin, you reacting up again. Doing this once or twice is one thing, but don't you get tired of this act? There are only the 3 of us of age in the Shin family. If you're not marrying one of us, where on earth would you find a Shin woman to wed? Chin Ha and crossing her arms, challenging me. So you claim you're not marrying us? Fine, then right here, right now, call this invisible fiancé of yours. Let us see exactly what kind of high-profile character you were using as a shield. Facing the mocking stares of the crowd, I gritted my teeth. At that exact moment, the phone in my pocket vibrated. The name displayed on the screen, Shen Nian. My heart thundered. I looked at the 3 sisters with eyes red with rage. Ko Ka and Achin hissing each word. Fine. You want to know who I am marrying? She's calling right now. I'll show you exactly who she is. I held the phone high, about to turn the screen toward the crowd to reveal the name. Nearly everyone in the villa leaned in, eyes wide with curiosity. But, just 3 seconds later, because the phone had been submerged in water for too long and I had only dried it quickly, the battery was compromised. The screen suddenly flickered and then went pitch black. It had died. A burst of laughter erupted, echoing throughout the villa. Ha, oh my god, young Master Gu, didn't you want us to meet your wife? Why has the screen gone dark? I guess when the acting fails, the props go on strike too. You've really shot yourself in the foot this time. Standing there like a fool, aren't you? My expression shifted rapidly. I hurriedly pulled my hand back, frantically pressing the power button, but the phone remained a lifeless brick, completely unresponsive. Gu Jingyan flustered, the battery is dead. Let me go find a charger. I was about to turn away when Shen Mingji stepped forward, blocking my path. Shin Mengji chin tilted up, eyes triumphant enough. Gu Jingdan, haven't you made a big enough fool of yourself already? Before I could retort, Shin Suan spoke in a cold, commanding tone to the bodyguards standing around. Shin Suan pointing around the room, you lot, smash this so-called wedding home to pieces. I want to see what he'll use for his delusions when there ass no house left. Receiving the order, several black-suited bodyguards immediately stormed in. Without a shred of mercy, they swung iron bars and began shattering the furniture, the television, the tables, and the decor. The sound of clattering and crashing was deafening. Seeing this, the wealthy young heirs at the party joined in eagerly, hurling wine bottles directly at the paintings I had hung on the walls. Gu Jingdan screaming in desperation, trying to stop them. What are you doing? What right do you have to touch my things? Stop! Shin Mengji, Shin Suan, Shin Kanu, tell them to stop. But as soon as I lunged forward, I was seized by two large, powerful bodyguards who pinned my shoulders down. I could only stand there, frozen, watching everything I had meticulously arranged, every piece of furniture I had handpicked, every corner I had decorated be reduced to rubble in an instant. Rage and grievance boiled within me, but I felt as if my entire body had been dropped into an ice cellar, a chill seeping into my very marrow. Shin Kanhu approaching, patting my cheek with a faint, mocking smile. This is the punishment for your slippery, lying habits. Remember this lesson. Be smarter in the future, and never try that pathetic distract and deceive tactic with us again. Looking at the villa that was once elegant and cozy, now transformed into a wasteland of debris, my heart sank into utter despair. The crowd that had arrived with such noise eventually left with mocking laughter, leaving me standing alone amidst the ruins. I didn't know how much time passed before I shuffled out of the house, dragging my broken spirit like a soulless ghost back to the Gu family villa. After plugging in a charger and restarting the phone, the screen immediately lit up with several missed call notifications from Shin Yuanning. I took a deep breath, wiped my face, and tried to steady my chaotic emotions before calling her back. During the few seconds of the dial tone, I was incredibly tense. Shin Yuanning and I were not of the same generation. Although she was only 5 years older than me, her status as the head of the Shin clan was so dazzling that an invisible gap and a deep-seated awe always existed between us. But no one picked up. My tension eased slightly. However, a moment later, a message from Shin Yuanning arrived. I'm in a meeting, it's not convenient to talk. I called earlier to let you know I am returning to the country tomorrow. The Shin family is hosting a welcome banquet, and I will take that opportunity to personally announce our marriage. For some reason, even though I was only reading black text on a white background without hearing her voice, my heart tightened. Fearing she might grow impatient waiting for a reply, I hurriedly typed back. I understand, Auntie. But there's something I need to tell you. The wedding house you gave me the keys to, it has been completely destroyed. There was no response for a long time. I stare at the screen, heart pounding. Finally, a new message appeared. She asked only one question. Was it my 3 nieces? I bit my lip, hesitated for a second, and then sent one word. Pass. And then, her next message popped up. Only 5 words, but they felt like a warm fire thawing my frozen, trembling heart. From now on, you have me. Looking at that brief, powerful sentence full of protection, my eyes couldn't help but redden. The next day, at the welcome banquet hosted by the Shin family. As soon as I entered the grand hall, I saw the 3 Shin sisters huddled around Lin Hao. Shin Mengji patting Lin Hao's shoulder, comforting him gently. Lin Hao, don't be afraid. Auntie might look cold and strict on the outside, but she doesn't bite. Don't be so nervous. Lin Hao head bowed slightly, gripping his shirt hem, forehead beating with sweat. But this is the first time I am meeting your aunt. My status is so low. Will she hate me? Shin Suan with a soft smile, looking at Lin Hao affectionately. Of course not. You are so kind and virtuous, anyone who meets you will like you. Rest easy, the 3 of us are right here. Shin Kandu chin up, thumping her chest confidently. There's nothing to fear when meeting an elder. If anything happens, just hide behind us. We'll protect you. Under the sweet consolation of the 3 heiresses, Lin Hao finally sighed in relief, nodding obediently. Lin Hao blinking, smiling shyly. Yes, I will definitely try to leave a good impression on her. Looking at his nauseatingly fake, theatrical act, I merely curled my lip in a sneer and quietly found my seat. The moment Shin Mengji saw me, her face darkened. Shin Mengji glancing sideways at me, her voice dripping with sarcasm. You read quite diligent today, aren't you? Knowing there are only a few days left until the wedding, you've dragged yourself here to suck up to Auntie, haven't you? Shin Suan arms crossed, mocking it as a pity. No matter how hard you try to please her, or what tricks you use to force one of us to be your wife, you won't have a single day of peace after the wedding. Haven't you heard the saying, forced love is never sweet? Facing those biting words, my heart remained entirely calm. Gu Jingning composedly taking a sip of water, replying softly, I have said it many times, my marriage partner is not any of you. Shin Kanu extremely impatient, slamming the table to interrupt. How many times are you going to drone on with that line? Still acting even today? Don't you have any newer tricks to play? I didn't bother arguing, I simply turned my gaze toward the door. After all, no matter how I explained it now, they wouldn't believe me. In that case, I'd just let the aunt they so feared announce it to them personally. I had no time left to tease them. But while I wanted peace, Lin Hao would not allow it. He approached my seat carrying a bowl of hot soup. Lin Hao smiling kindly, his voice high-pitched. Jingden, I remember this pumpkin seed soup is your favorite. Since you can't reach it from where you're sitting, let me serve a bowl for you. With that, he held the steaming bowl toward me, but the moment my hand touched the rim, he suddenly let go. Watch out, Lin Hao cried out in a fake alarm. Crash, the entire bowl of scalding soup splashed directly onto me. The skin on the back of my hand and wrist turned bright red instantly, the burning pain searing through to the bone. Jin Mingji, seeing the scene, immediately rushed over to shield Lin Hao, glaring at me. Gu Jingnan, what are you doing? Lin Hao was kind enough to get soup for you. If you aren't grateful, fine, but why did you intentionally knock it away to make things hard for him? Gu Jingnan clutching my throbbing hand, teeth gritted against the pain, looking at her in disbelief. Are you blind? He asked the one who let go. Shin Mingji pushing Lin Hao behind her, her voice drowning mine out. Why are you shouting? Lin Hao didn't do it on purpose. It was an accident. You're a man, it's just a bowl of soup. Why do you have to blow everything out of proportion? Jin Kanu scowling harshly, pointing at my face. Gu Jingnan, the way you just looked at him scared Lin Hao. Apologize to him right now. Me? Apologize to Lin Hao? I was the one burned, I was the victim, and yeah, I had to apologize to the culprit. My head spun with fury. Just as I was about to fight back, the grand doors of the hall swung wide open. Light flooded in from outside. Under everyone's gaze, a woman in a perfectly tailored business suit entered. But it wasn't Shen Yuanding, it was her personal assistant. Assisted professional and clear. I apologize for the wait. President Shen has urgent matters to attend to, so her return schedule has been delayed by a few days. We ask for everyone's understanding. As Shen Yuanding was the head of the family and held immense power, no one present dared to object. They all nodded in understanding. At that moment, the assistant's sharp eyes scanned the crowd before walking straight toward me. When she stood before me, her cold, distant demeanor vanished, replaced by reverence and gentleness. Assistant bowing politely, young Master Gu, please step aside with me for a moment. President Shen told me she has something important to discuss with you privately. As I followed her to a quiet corner, the assistant, as if by magic, produced a beautiful black velvet gift box and carefully opened it. Inside was a diamond-encrusted men's watch, its design exquisite and high class. Assistant offering the box with both hands, her tone sincere. Young Master Gu, this is an apology gift from President Shen. Actually, because she wanted to finish all her work to make it back in time for your wedding, she has barely slept for the past week. As soon as the work was done and she boarded the plane, she fell ill from exhaustion. She paused, sighing softly. We are truly worried about her health. It was very difficult to convince President Chen to stay abroad for a few more days of rest so that she could appear at her best for the wedding. Please, Mr. Gu, do not blame her for missing today's appointment. Hearing those words, my nose suddenly stung. Of course, I didn't blame her. This marriage was something I had impulsively requested because I was at the end of my rope, putting her in a difficult position. The fact that she agreed had already made me weep with joy. Moreover, she had worked herself sick just to make it back for our wedding. Compared to whether she attended this party or not, my only concern now was her health. Gu Jingnan shaking my head repeatedly, eyes full of heartache. I don't blame her, absolutely not. As long as she is okay and recovers, that's all that matters. Knowing Shen Yuanding was safe, the weight on my chest finally lifted. Since she, the guest of honor, wasn't there, I had no reason to stay in this suffocating place any longer. After saying goodbye to the assistant and carefully tucking the watch into my breast pocket, I turned to leave. But suddenly, the three Shen sisters aggressively stepped in to block my path. Chen Mingji, sharp eyes narrowing, eyeing the gift box in my pocket. What did you just pull the assistant aside to talk about? Chen Suan instantly assuming, sneering. Gu Jingnan, you really have no shame. Since you couldn't get to Auntie, did you move on to buttering up her assistant? Stop with the useless tricks. You still haven't apologized to Lin Hao. Get back there with us right now. With that, Shin Kanu reached out to grab my collar and dragged me back. Gu Jingnan shoving her hand away, eyes full of disgust. Don't touch me. I didn't want to waste another word on these lunatics. I coldly brushed past them and walked out of the hall with long, decisive strides. Late that night, while I was deep in sleep, the persistent ringing of my phone tore through the silence of the night. As soon as I hung up one call, another followed relentlessly. Frustrated, I rubbed my head and checked the phone, only to find the calls were coming from a circle of socialite friends belonging to the three Shin sisters. The moment I pressed answer, the person on the other end screamed without any courtesy. Friend of Shin Mingji loud, panicked, and accusatory Gu Jingdan, how can you still be sleeping? Mingji, Suan, and Kana were just in a racing accident. They re in the emergency room right now. What kind of fiancé are you? Get your ass down here to visit them. A racing accident? Earlier that afternoon, I had indeed heard some rumors in upper-class circles. Lin Hao had happened to fancy a limited edition bracelet that was out of stock. To win that bracelet as a prize to please Lin Hao, the three Shin heiresses had risked their lives in a high-stakes street race. The result was a loss of control, and all three were injured and hospitalized. I listened, my heart entirely cold. If they brought disaster upon themselves just to please a lover, what the hell did that have to do with me? Gu Jingdan voice low and cold, I am not going. After those 3 words, I hung up. Then, I went into the settings and blocked every phone number belonging to the 3 sisters and their friends, giving them no further chance to disturb me. For the next several days, I stayed home to rest and focus on wedding preparations. News of the Gu family sending out invitations finally reached the ears of the 3 sisters, who had just been discharged from the hospital. The next second, a message from an unknown number hit my phone. With this arrogant tone, I didn't need to guess to know it was Shin Mingji. Gu Jingdan, it seems you've treated our warnings as white noise. Fine. If you want the marriage, fine. I'll give you the status. But I am telling you now, no matter who you choose, the 3 of us will never attend the wedding. Go ahead and make a scene. I want to see if you're afraid of becoming the laughingstock of the city. I am giving you one last chance to make amends. Drive to the North City District right now and wait in line to buy a box of red bean cakes from the Zhenzhou shop. Lin Hao was craving them. If you can bring them back within 20 minutes, we might consider gracing your wedding with our presence. Looking at this self-righteous, peak arrogance message, I was so angry I actually laughed out loud. The Zhenzhou shop in North City was the most famous. There was always a 2 to 3 hour wait. They expected me to bring them back in 20 minutes? They truly saw me as an errand dog. I obviously had no time to buy those damn cakes. However, I did need to meet these 3 sisters one last time to settle things once and for all. I went back to my study and rummaged around for a bit. When I stepped out, I was carrying 3 cardboard boxes. I drove straight to the VIP room of the club where they usually gather. As soon as I pushed the door open, the smell of cigarette smoke and Western liquor hit my nose. Shin Kanhu's mocking voice rang out immediately. Shin Kanhu pointing at me, laughing hysterically with her friend. See, I told you, he really is the thick-skinned, lil heel-licking dog type. Just throw him some scraps or a bit of sweetness, and he comes running back on all fours. That insult caused everyone in the room to erupt into mocking laughter. In the center of the room, Lin Hao was surrounded and protected by the 3 sisters. Lin Hao leaning back on the sofa, smirking slightly, his voice whining, Mingji, I suddenly don't want red bean cakes anymore. I changed my mind, I want the Mil-Fuel cake from West Sea. Shin Mingji glancing at me like I was a servant, commanding, did you hear that, Gu Jingdan? Lin Hao wants the West City cake. Get lost and go buy it for him. I said nothing. I stood tall, a cold smirk on my face. Gu Jingdan responding calmly, I didn't buy red bean cakes, and I don't have time to buy any damn cake. The 3 sisters frowned simultaneously, their expressions surprised. Shin Suan irritated, if you didn't buy them, why did you drag yourself here? Gu Jingdan eyes sharp, slamming the 3 boxes onto the glass table to throw out the trash. With that, I grabbed the top box, walked straight up to Shin Mingji, and threw it at her. Thick stacks of documents scattered across the floor. Gu Jingdan voice clear and steady, Shin Mingji, for years you've been obsessed with artificial intelligence projects. To understand you, to have something to talk to you about, I stayed up night after night gathering mountains of data, even spending my own money to buy the latest research products. Here, take them back. From now on, anything related to you is no longer my concern. Next, I took the second box, walked up to Shin Suan, and tossed a pile of small glass vials at her. Gu Jingdan continuing coldly, Shin Suan, as a doctor, you are constantly stressed and suffer from severe insomnia. To help you sleep, I, a young master who never lifted a finger in the kitchen, spent 3 months in aromatherapy classes. These are the filled vials of essential oils that left my hands covered in burns. I've learned how to make the perfect oil now, but I've also given up on you. Finally, I threw the 3rd box into Shin Kanhu's lap. Several yellow triangular amulets fell out. Gu Jingdan looking her in the eye, devoid of emotion. Shin Kanhu, you love extreme sports. Worried about your safety, I knelt and kowtowed at every major temple in the country to get these peace charms. But from now on, whether your life is safe or not, has absolutely nothing to do with me. The 3 heavy boxes hit them one by one, exposing all the heart and soul I had once poured out for them. The minds of all three women seemed to go blank. They stared in shock at the mementos scattered at their feet, unable to react. Having discarded these burdens, my entire body felt suddenly light. I smiled peacefully, scanning everyone standing frozen in the room. Gu Jinggan enunciating every word, declaring wildly, "It's good that everyone is here today, all famous figures in our circles. Be my witnesses, from this moment on, I, Gu Jinggan, will never follow or serve the three Shin sisters again. After these three, our ties are severed, we have nothing left to do with each other. Having done everything I needed to do, I turned to leave. Only then did the three Shin heiresses snap out of it. They rushed forward, 6 hands grabbing at my sleeves and arms, their expressions turning from shock to frantic rage. Shin Mengji hands trembling, biting her lip, shouting, "Gu Jingdan, that's enough with the playing hard to get act. Are you really not afraid that we'll skip the wedding tomorrow and leave you standing alone at the altar?" They tried to appear angry and threatening, but if you listen closely, their voices carried a hint of trembling and utter panic. I calmly peeled their fingers off my clothes one by one, brushing the spots they had touched as if wiping away bacteria. Gu Jingdan with a faint smile, "I've already told you the bride at the wedding is not any of you. You are just guests. And as for guests, whether you show up or not, I don't give a damn." Having said that, I ignored their deathly pale faces and strode out, my back straight and resolute. Finally, the wedding day arrived. The three Shin sisters, dressed magnificently and arrogantly, led Lin Hao and their circle of friends into the wedding venue. Seeing the hall decorated with imported fresh flowers, magnificent crystal chandeliers, and guests who were all higher-ranking figures, one of the friends suddenly felt uncertain and nudged Shin Mengji. Friend of Shin Mengji frowning, looking around suspiciously, "Hey, why do I feel like this wedding is being handled so properly and grandly? If Jingming was just using a distraction tactic to scare you guys, he wouldn't spend as much or go this bid, would he? It's hard to say. What if the person he's marrying really isn't one of you three?" As soon as she finished, the faces of Shin Mengji, Shin Suan, and Shin Kanu shifted in unison. Although a flicker of unease began to stir in their hearts, they quickly donned their masks of cold confidence. Shin Mengji snorting, arms crossed, "Stop worrying about nothing. Besides the three of us, where else is he going to find someone with the surname Shin to marry? He's making this bit of a scene just to back us into a corner and force us to yield and marry him." Shin Suan smoothing a lock of hair, her tone biting exactly. "Just wait until he loses face. The more grand he makes it, the more of a pathetic joke he'll become when the bride doesn't show up." Though they spoke tough, Lin Hao standing next to them keenly sensed their underlying obsession and panic regarding me. His heart sank. Ever since yesterday, when I had decisively thrown those 3 boxes back, everything seemed to have changed. Lin Hao couldn't help but feel terrified, fearful that the secret of him stealing credit for saving their lives during that earthquake years ago would be exposed. Lin Hao trying to force a strained smile, comforting them. "Mengji is right. Young Master Gu just likes saving face. He pursued you for so long and loved you to death, how could he just give up like that? He's probably just acting tough right now to salvage some dignity." The three of them listened, nodding absently to reassure themselves. At that moment, to the romantic melody of a piano, the officiant stepped onto the stage. Officiant with a bright smile, announcing wildly, "Please welcome the groom and his parents to the stage." The grand, intricately carved doors swung open. I walked in, supporting my parents' arms on either side, slowly processing into the hall. The white suit, custom designed by a master tailor, accentuated my tall, trim figure, perfectly showcasing my looks, youth, and extraordinary aura. The moment I stepped under the lights, everyone present felt their hearts skip a beat. Even in the eyes of the three Shin sisters, a flash of utter amazement sparked, though they quickly bit their lips to suppress the feeling. Once I was standing steady on stage, the officiant smiled toward the door again. Officiant projecting his voice, "And now, let us welcome the bride." 1 second, 5 seconds, then 10 seconds pass. Time seemed to stretch, but the doors remained closed and the bride's figure had yet to appear. Whispers began to ripple through the hall. Seeing this, the three Shin sisters breathed a sigh of relief, their smugness returning. Shin Mengji smirking, laughing mockingly, "Gu Jingdan, you've played this farce long enough. Have you had your fill? Where's your invisible bride?" Shin Suan smiling coldly, clapping the call over several Shin family bodyguards. "Gu Jingdan, since you insist on being shameless, then we don't need to save your face either. Remember, I told you if you dared to hold this wedding, I would destroy it." Amidst the mocking noise, the faces of my parents sitting at the head table turned as dark as a coal pot. Father Shin standing abruptly, slanting the table. "What are you three doing? Why aren't you sitting in the guest area? What's with this commotion? You dare call bodyguards to break up a wedding? Do you have any idea how important this day is for the clan?" Before he could finish, Shin Suan tilted her chin and interrupted him coldly. Shin Suan pointing at me, her voice insolent. Mom, Dad, it's not that we don't respect the family, but we told you a long time ago the marriage alliance is fine. Giving him a puppet status is fine, but there will be no wedding. In our hearts, there is only Lin Hao. If he insists on forcing this wedding, don't blame us for being ruthless. The three sisters simultaneously ordered the bodyguards behind them, their tones cold and uncompromising. The three Shin sisters pointing around the hall from this moment on, smash this wedding to pieces, don't leave a single thing standing. But before they could finish their sentence, the main doors of the hall were once again pushed wide open. A feminine but cold voice, carrying overwhelming authority and supreme elegance, rang out clearly. Shin Yuanding entering, her voice like ice cutting through the atmosphere. Who dares? Every eye immediately turned toward the door. Shin Yuanding walked in, wearing an exquisitely designed wedding dress that highlighted her graceful, perfect figure. Her usual cold, noble aura was enhanced by delicate makeup, making her beauty so breathtaking it was almost oppressive. Everyone present instinctively held their breath as they watched her. Her long hair was pinned up in a sophisticated bun, and her eyes were bright and steady, looking directly at me on the stage. That look seemed to comfort me and give me infinite courage. Most notably, on the flower pinned to her chest, a name tag clearly displayed 3 gold-plated words: Bride Shin Yuanding. In that instant, the entire hall fell into a deathly silence. Everyone forgot what they were doing, standing as frozen as stone statues. Entering with Shin Yuanding were the patriarch and matriarch of the Shin family, Shin Mengji, Shin Suan, and Shin Kan, who were completely paralyzed. Their eyes widened, almost unable to believe what they were seeing. How could this be? The bride at Gu Jingdan's wedding today was their young Miss Shin Yuanding? The three sisters felt their heads buzzing as if struck by lightning. Their vision went dark, and it felt as though the sky was collapsing. If what was before them was the truth, then what have they been doing all this time? They had insulted, bullied, and tormented the man who was about to become their uncle. Realizing this, the three of them felt the air around them vanish. Breathing became incredibly difficult. They had spent so much time saying they hated me and never wanted to marry me. Now that I was marrying someone else, shouldn't they be jumping for joy? But why? Why did seeing me in a groom-ass suit, smiling as I took another woman's hand, not bring them a single spark of happiness? Instead, a sharp, suffocating pain radiated from their chests. The three looked at each other, seeing only confusion, panic, and a broken heart for reasons they couldn't name. However, the wedding did not stop for their shock. Shin Yuanding elegantly ascended the stage and placed her white lace-gloved hand in mine. Her eyes, usually so cold, now showed a rare softness and passion as she looked at me. The Shin patriarch and matriarch sat below, smiling and nodding in satisfaction, considering a major weight lifted from their hearts. Official recovering, smiling enthusiastically, his voice rising in excitement. I asked the groom and the bride, are you both willing to take this vow from this day forward to support and understand one another? Whether in sickness or health, in hardship or ease, to always love, respect, and sustain each other, never changing your heart? Shin Yuanding and I looked deep into each other's eyes, our fingers interlaced. Gu Jing and Shin Yuanding in unison, their firm voices echoing through the hall. I do. The moment those words were spoken, the entire hall erupted into thunderous applause. Every guest sincerely sent their blessings to the new couple. The only exceptions were Shin Mengji, Shin Suan, and Shin Kanhu. They stood rooted in the guest area, watching the scene of affection on stage, their hands clenched at their sides so tightly they drew blood. Shin Kanhu, unable to suppress the strange surge of jealousy and resentment, her eyes bloodshot, screamed, I don't agree. Her mind was a mess. She had no idea what she was saying, only that her heart was screaming to stop this wedding. However, her desperate cry was buried by the music and the overwhelming applause of the guests. Absolutely no one heard her. The sudden burst of courage flared and then died out instantly. When the applause stopped, she no longer had the bravery to scream a second time. He's so annoying. I didn't want to marry him, did I? Now that he's marrying someone else, I don't have to worry about that annoying pest following me around anymore. I should be happy with this result. Shin Kanhu kept muttering to herself, brainwashing and comforting herself. But tears rolled down her cheeks uncontrollably. Shin Mengji and Shin Suan were particularly silent, their eyes fixed on the stage, unable to look away for even a second. Efficient smiling. Next, the groom and bride will exchange rings and kiss. 2 flower children like little angels skipped forward, carrying fresh flowers and the rings. I calmly took the sparkling diamond ring, lifted Shin Yuanding's hand, and with great seriousness, slid it onto her ring finger. At that moment, my heart finally felt completely settled. No one could ever use that damn marriage contract to humiliate or blame me again. I had officially married Shin Yuanding. Looking at her beautiful, radiant face so close to mine, my heart pounded uncontrollably. My mind went blank. Suddenly, I was so flustered that I momentarily forgot what the next step was. Shin Yuanding noticed my clumsiness. She let out a soft laugh, proactively took the man's ring, lifted my hand, and gently slid it onto my finger. That soft, yielding action fell into the eyes of everyone. It looked as though a powerful queen was willingly allowing herself to be bound to me. From one of the tables, excited cheers echoed through the air. Kiss, kiss, kiss. The chants rose in a rhythmic wave. Almost instantly, Shen Yuanding's fair face flushed a deep crimson. Her long lashes fluttered nervously as she cast her shy gaze downward. Unable to restrain myself any longer, I pulled her into my arms, circling her waist and lifting her exquisite face toward mine. Yuanding cooperated, rising slightly on her tiptoes to press her lips proactively against the corner of mine. The transition from initial clumsiness to a burning, breathless passion happened in the blink of an eye. My strong arms tightened around her slender waist, holding her firmly against my chest as we shared a deep, lingering kiss before hundreds of witnesses. When we finally broke apart, I carefully used my thumb to wipe away the smudged lipstick from the corner of her mouth. Only after ensuring she looked perfect did I catch my breath and let her go. I tried to maintain a composed expression, but Yuanding's body had gone completely soft. She looked as though she were walking on clouds, instinctively leaning her weight against my steady chest. At that peak of sweetness, a deafening crash suddenly erupted from the guest area. Shen Mengji had slammed her fist onto the table in a frenzy, shattering several glass tumblers. Her right hand was instantly soaked in blood, yet she seemed oblivious to the pain, her bloodshot eyes glaring fixatedly at the stage. Shen Suan fared no better. She gripped a sharp steak knife, her knuckles turning white as she squeezed the handle. She began spinning the blade frantically between her fingers like a circus performer. The cold glint of the steel reflected off her distorted features, causing the guests at her table to recoil in terror, fearing she might charge the stage and stab someone at any second. Old Madame Shen had risen from the head table at some unknown point, leaning on her cane as she walked down. Her eyes, usually gentle and kind, were now filled with cold fury and absolute authority. Slap, slap, slap. 3 crisp, successive strikes rang out. The matriarch had swung her hand, slapping the faces of her 3 insolent granddaughters. Old Madame Shen hissing in rage, her gaze as sharp as a blade. Get out with me. I will absolutely not allow you to ruin your aunt's wedding. Under their grandmother's terrifying intimidation, Shen Mengji, Shen Suan, and Shen Keru didn't dare resist. They could only cover their faces and submissively follow her elegant yet murderous stride toward the VIP lounge. Click. The sound of the lounge door locking was dry and final. Old Madame Shen turned around and, from somewhere unseen, pulled out a black and red rattan cane. The cane was polished to a shine and covered in tiny, sharp thorns, an heirloom passed down through generations. The moment the 3 arrogant sisters saw it, they simultaneously trembled and collapsed to their knees. That was the Shen family's family discipline. They had been struck with it once as children, and the bone-deep agony of that memory remained etched in their minds. Now, seeing their grandmother holding it, they were so terrified they didn't dare utter a word of protest. Old Madame Shen letting out a cold laugh, she whipped the cane through the air with a piercing whoosh. It seems the 3 of you still don't realize where you went wrong. If your grandfather and I hadn't been living in seclusion at the mountain villa all year, you probably would have climbed onto everyone's heads by now. The engagement was settled long ago. Jingyan is such a good, devoted young man. How could you trample on him and treat him so cruelly? Her anger flared white hot. Refusing to even dirty her own hands, she threw the thorn-covered cane onto the floor in front of them. Old Madame Shen grounding out each word, an absolute command. The 3 of you will take turns whipping each other. Do not stop until I tell you to. Trembling, the 3 sisters picked up the cane, not daring to disobey. One by one, they gritted their teeth and used all their strength to lash the backs and shoulders of their sisters. After only a few strokes, their expensive designer evening gowns were shredded in numerous places, and blood began to seep through, staining their skin red. The sound of the cane tearing through the air mingled with their incessant groans of pain. After an unknown amount of time, with the room thick with the scent of blood, the old madam finally raised her hand to signal a stop. Old Madame Shen with a stern, cold face speak. Do you realize your mistakes yet? After a moment of gasping for breath through the pain, Shen Mengji stubbornly lifted her head. Shen Mengji biting her lip until it bled, arguing defiantly, grandmother, I did nothing wrong. I never wanted to marry Gu Jingyan. Any grievances he suffered were his own fault for shamelessly clinging to me. I warned him many times. Shen Suan clutching her bleeding arm, chiming in, grandmother, me too. If he hadn't constantly annoyed us like a pathetic lapdog, he wouldn't have faced those punishments. Besides, he used his position to bully Lin how he deserved to be punished by us. Shen Keru, tears streaming down her face but still unyielding. I agree, Grandma. None of us were happy with this engagement. It shouldn't have existed in the first place. There was nothing wrong with us rejecting him. Hearing these stubborn excuses, old Madame Shen was so incensed she broke into a chilling laugh. Old Madam Shin pointing her cane at the floor. Since you are all so adamant that you didn't want to be with Jingyan, then tell me why'd you make such a scene at the wedding today? Jingyan stepped back and humbled himself to marry Yuanding, essentially letting you off the hook and granting your wishes. What is there left to be dissatisfied or indignant about? That razor-sharp question silenced them instantly. The lounge became deathly quiet, save for their ragged, sobbing breaths. They couldn't answer, for they didn't dare face their own hearts, which were currently bleeding with jealousy. After a long silence, old Madam Shin narrowed her eyes and smiled mockingly. Old Madam Shin declaring a world-shaking decision. Very well. Since you refuse to admit your true feelings, I will fulfill your desires. I will immediately announce the engagement of all three of you to that Lin Hao you love so dearly. But remember this well: if any of you ever dare to interfere with or disturb the happiness of Jingyan and Yuanding again, I will show no mercy. I will break your legs and cast you out of the Shin family. Like a thunderbolt on a clear day, the three sisters looked up in horror, their eyes nearly bursting with fear. The Shin sisters in unison, waving their hands frantically. Grandmother, what are you saying? The old madam repeated herself in a tone that left no room for negotiation. Chinkaru face pale, stammering as she backed away. The engagement is too soon. I haven't thought through actually marrying Lin Hao. She glanced fearfully at her two sisters. The hesitation and rejection were clear in their eyes as well. They claimed to love Lin Hao, but none of them had ever truly imagined walking down the aisle with him. Seeing their silent resistance, the mockery on the old madam's face deepened. Old Madam Shin snorting coldly, you don't want to be engaged to Lin Hao? Dream on, my decision is final. You said with your own mouth that you loved him. Isn't that the same as wanting to marry him? I am simply giving you what you want. There will be no further discussion. Thump, leaning on her cane, the old madam turned and walked out, slamming the door behind her. The door was locked from the outside by bodyguards with cold, mechanical clicks. The three Shin sisters were officially under house arrest. Just as they were about to rush the door, the calm, icy voice of a bodyguard drifted in from outside. Bodyguard standing at attention, projecting his voice, ladies, please continue whipping each other. The old madam's orders are clear. You are to strike until the head of the family Shin Yuanding gives the word to release you. With that, the guard stood like a wooden statue, ignoring all the sounds of smashing and wailing coming from inside the room. In the cold, locked lounge, Shin Mingji, Shin Suan, and Shin Karu looked at each other, instinctively frowning as they began to scream accusations at one another. The Shin sisters in unison, blaming each other. Why didn't you just agree to marry Lin Hao? As their voices clashed, Shin Mingji frustratedly clutched her head and let out the truth. Shin Mingji biting her lip irritably, hissing, I only liked him for what he provided me. I never actually intended to wear a wedding dress and take him as my husband. The other two clearly shared the sentiment. Although they were still loudly arguing about Lin Hao, their thoughts had already drifted entirely to Gu Jingyan. They were desperate to escape. They kept lying to themselves. Gu Jingyan had deceived them for so long, following them like a dog. How could he possibly be worthy of marrying their aunt? Surely he and their aunt were just acting to humiliate them. However, the image of our deep, passionate kiss on stage was burned into their minds, impossible to erase no matter how hard they tried. Intense resentment and jealousy surged, filling their chests. All three were desperate for an answer. Why did it feel so suffocating to see him marry someone else? Why, when they saw him kissing their aunt, did a mad wish scream from the depths of their souls, if only the one he was kissing right now was me? As those two fatal questions emerged, all three flinched, their faces turning ashen. It turned out, they had all fallen for him, loving Gu Jingyan without even realizing it. A bizarre sense of guilt and inexplicable regret overwhelmed their reason. They repeatedly tried to deny it, but the internal screams of jealousy only grew louder. Yet, a brutal reality slapped them in the face. Tonight was the wedding night of Gu Jingyan and Shin Yuanding. They glanced at the time on a shattered phone screen, 23:59. They were out of time. At this very moment, Gu Jingyan and Shin Yuanding were likely in their bridal chamber, making the marriage a reality. He had truly married another woman, and that woman was someone so noble they couldn't even touch her, their own aunt. Throughout the long, grueling night, the three of them stayed awake. Their eyes were bloodshot and wide, their hands moved mechanically, devoid of emotion as they whipped each other according to the old madam's orders. Scarcely a patch of healthy skin remained on their bodies. Their faces were as white as paper, and fresh blood flowed until the room was nearly stained red. Yet, none of them would be the first to call for a stop, and none of them dared to quit. After an eternity, unable to endure the physical and mental torture any longer, they finally collapsed from exhaustion. When they woke up, they found themselves in VIP beds at the family hospital. Upon opening their eyes, they saw Shin Yuanding sitting on a sofa, leisurely flipping through documents. Shin Yuanding lifting her eyes to look at them indifferently, her tone icy and devoid of pity. You reawake. To be honest, I couldn't care less about the punishment my mother gave you. But for all the humiliation and pain you inflicted on Jingyan in the past, consider this a down payment on what I am paying back on his behalf." Having said that, she stood up and nonchalantly straightened her lapel, preparing to leave. Before stepping out of the ward, Yuanding intentionally turned back to deliver one more razor-sharp line. Shin Yuanding, her lips curling, her gaze oppressive. "Remember your current status. From now on, whenever you see Jingyan, you must bow and call him uncle. Every time you get it wrong, you get a slap until it is carved into your very bones. Also, Lin Hao is now your fiancé, appointed by your grandmother. Lay there and think long and hard about which one of you is going to marry him to clean up this mess." On their hospital beds, the three sisters turned pale, gritting their teeth and enduring the silence, not daring to utter a peep. Their aunt was only a few years older than them, but the overwhelming aura she exuded was something they could never match in their entire lives. Moreover, as adults, they couldn't help but notice the faint, ambiguous hickeys visible beneath Yuanding's shirt collar, as well as the radiant, blissful glow on her face. The wedding had been grand, and the marriage certificate was surely signed. The cruel truth was laid bare: they had utterly lost Gu Jingyan. A thick sense of despair rushed over them, weighing them down until they could barely breathe. Suddenly, the ward door was pushed open again. A familiar scent of sandalwood perfume wafted in. The Shin sisters' eyes lighting up with hope, shouting in unison, "Jingyan!" However, the person who walked in wasn't Gu Jingyan, but Lin Hao. The smile that had just begun to form on his face froze instantly, and his hands, tightly clutching a thermal container, turned pale. Lin Hao's voice a mix of bitterness and forced awkwardness. "Mengji, Suan, Karu, have you been beaten so badly you re-seeing things?" "Yes, me, Lin Hao. Did you just call out Gu Jingyan's name?" Lin Hao walked in and placed 3 different colored thermal containers on the table. Lin Hao, trying to sound attentive and sincere: "I stayed up late to personally brew this red date chicken soup for you. You re so badly injured it must hurt a lot." As he spoke, he reached out to touch Shin Mengji's bandaged wound to show his concern. Shin Mengji instinctively flinching away, but unable to move much due to the pain, she coldly swatted his hand away and snapped, "Don't touch me, I am fine. Take this soup to the other 2, they need your care." Lin Hao pausing, his smile becoming even more strained as he turned toward the other 2 beds. Shin Suan glaring, immediately waving him off. "No need, I don't need you waiting on me either. Just find a seat and sit down. Stop hovering in front of me." Shin Karu turning her face away with a cold snort, "Leave the stuff and get out." Lin Hao standing rooted to the spot, his eyes turning red as he looked aggrieved. "You, why are you suddenly being so cold to me? Did I do something wrong to make you angry? Is it because of the engagement grandmother forced last night? But you can't blame me for that." He began his familiar act of playing the victim. "I know I am just the son of a servant, of low status, unworthy of your noble background. I never dared to dream of being with you. For all this time, I only hoped to be a silent shadow, content just to care for you. But the engagement was decided by the old madam. How could I have the right to resist? Could you try to open your hearts and like me just a little bit?" Looking at his groveling, hypocritical, and calculating face now, the 3 young ladies felt none of the pity or affection they once had. On the contrary, they felt utterly nauseated and irritated. Now that they realized they truly loved Gu Jingyan, how could they accept a substitute like Lin Hao? Furthermore, if any of them showed him kindness, the old madam would use it as an excuse to force that person to actually marry him. Wouldn't that ruin their entire life? Thinking of that disastrous consequence, Shin Mengji decisively spoke up to crush his delusions. Shin Mengji looking Lin Hao straight in the eye, her voice cold and final. "Lin Hao, listen clearly, I have no intention of ever marrying you. I like you and defended you before, that is true. But now, I see my heart clearly. The one I truly love is Gu Jingyan." She took a breath and continued, "The favoritism I showed you before was only to repay the debt for you risking your life to save me in that earthquake years ago. In return for that kindness, you can make a material request as long as it is not outrageous. I will grant it. You and Auntie Chen have struggled for years. I can give the 2 of you a massive sum of money, enough to live comfortably for the rest of your lives. But the condition is you and your mother must move out of the Shin residence where you choose to marry one of the other 2. In short, I will not marry you." Lin Hao stood stunned, his ears ringing and his mind spinning. How could this be? The engagement had been set last night. He thought he had ascended to the heavens to become a son-in-law of a prestigious family. How could she turn around and reject him so heartlessly? Unable to believe it, he frantically turned to Shin Suan and Shin Karu with pleading eyes. Shin Suan, her gaze cold and devoid of warmth, blunt and ruthless. "I am sorry, Lin Hao. I absolutely don't want to marry you either. This engagement was grandmother's decision, not our wish. I don't blame you, nor is it because I look down on your status as a servant's son. It is just that I don't feel enough for you to spend my life with you. Aside from marriage, you can ask for any money or assets you want. After all, you are my lifesaver." Shinkaru clearly sharing the same thought, lifting her chin irritately. Lin Hao, I have even less interest in marrying you. If you want to marry some other rich socialite, the three of us will help you find a match. Whoever it is, we will back you up with all our strength. Just as long as the bride isn't me. Hearing these heartless words being tossed around like a piece of merchandise, Lin Hao felt his heart sink to the bottom of an abyss. He never imagined that after years of acting, using every low and dirty trick, and striving for their favor, he would only end up with a few hollow promises of money. The very same cruel words they once used to insult Gu Jingyan were now being used on him. Bitterness, resentment, and indignation flared, making Lin Hao unable to suppress the anger in his voice. Lin Hao gritting his teeth, yelling, are you all crazy? Now you re-saying the one you like is Jingyan? But he is married. He is your uncle now. He married your aunt. You and him will never have a chance to be together. Besides, how can you flip your positions so fast? Just yesterday, before he got married, you were still saying sweet things to me, saying I was the one you loved. The three sisters' expressions darkened immediately, looking extremely ugly. He had hit their sore spot. Chen Mingji, her eyes as cold as ice, with none of her previous gentleness or protection. Jingyan is just acting out because he is angry with us. He married our aunt only for revenge. There is no love between them. Lin Hao, watch your mouth. You'd better swallow those words. Shinkaru irritably glaring at Lin Hao, you said it yourself, that was before the wedding. If it weren't for this shocking marriage, perhaps we would never have realized who is truly etched into our hearts. Go home. We don't need a hypocrite like you taking care of us. Regarding the engagement, even if you don't go to grandma to ask for a cancellation, it will never become a reality. Shin Suhan adding coldly, Karu was right. Don't show your face here again, lest grandmother misunderstands and thinks we actually want to marry you. You and your mother should pack your bags and move out of the villa. I'll have someone send you compensation for years you've spent. As soon as she finished, Shin Suhan reached out and pressed the emergency call button by her bed, summoning the nurse on duty. Chen Suan ordering the nurse, make a note for me from now on. This person is absolutely forbidden from stepping foot into this room. We find him disgusting and don't want to see his face. Nurse nodding repeatedly, turning to urge Lin Hao, sir, please leave immediately. Do not disturb the patient's rest. Lin Hao was surrounded by nurses and security guards and unceremoniously pushed out of the ward. He tried to look back at the three heartless girls, his heart filled with ultimate hatred. Just because of that damned engagement? How could they so easily flip their attitudes and say they didn't love him? Was the gentleness and pampering they gave him all a lie? He didn't understand, and he wasn't willing to give up. After wasting so much effort, so many tears, and so much patience, it all turned out to be for nothing. How could he accept this empty-handed result? Lin Hao etched the image of that ward door into his mind, swearing a silent oath, I will find a way to come back and be the master of this house. Once Lin Hao left, the ward finally returned to silence. But the expressions of all three women remained gloomy and heavy. During their several days in the hospital, they didn't know how many times they had shamelessly picked up their phones to send messages to Gu Jingyan. They sent photos of their bloody wounds to beg for pity. They sent long, rambling messages crying and admitting their faults, begging him to spare some time to visit them just once. But it was all like stones dropping into the ocean. They didn't receive a single response. Shen Mengji opened her chat history with Gu Jingyan, looking at the screen as her heart wrenched with regret. The last time he had proactively messaged her, his words were full of warmth and concern, but that was a month ago. It was the very day she had heartlessly lied to him, forcing him to stand in the pouring rain all day outside the Civil Affairs Bureau just as a joke. Mingji, it is raining hard today. Remember to bring an umbrella so you don't catch a cold. Mingji, did you run into any trouble on the way? Why aren't you here yet? Mingji, the registration office is about to close. When will you arrive? If you be busy, don't worry about it. Just be safe while driving. Looking at those foolish messages, Shen Mengji burst into tears. He was so stupid, deceived into standing in the rain until he was soaked and running high fever, yet he still refused to leave, patiently sending a series of messages worrying about her safety. And that day, she hadn't even bothered to reply. Now, the wheel of karma had turned. Their roles were reversed. She was the one frantically sending countless messages, but Gu Jingyan probably never even glanced at them. Shen Mengji wiped her tears and glanced at her two sisters in the neighboring beds. Shin Suhan and Shinkaru were also clutching their phones, staring blankly at their screens which showed no replies, their hearts growing cold. It was only at this moment of desperation that they truly understood the meaning of the words Gu Jingyan had declared before the wedding. He bet that he would never follow them or proactively look for them again. He had actually done it, her endurance reaching its limit. Shin Suhan couldn't wait any longer. She dialed his number. After countless attempts, the ringing finally stopped and the call connected. Shin Suan joyful to the point of tears, her voice trembling as she rushed out the words Jing-in. You answered, can you, for the sake of all our years together, come to the hospital to see me? I never intended to marry Lin Hao. I understand now the one I love from the bottom of my heart is you. However, her belated, humble confession was cut short halfway by an arrogant, lazy female voice. Shin Yuaning, her voice over the phone was cold, yet carried an unusual, bewitching intimacy. Shin Suan, Jing-in is sleeping. Stop calling to disturb your uncle. From the other end of the line came the rustle of sheets. Then, the sleepy mumble of Gu Jing-in drifted through. It seemed that the noise had disturbed his sense of security. He instinctively burrowed deeper into the warm arms and familiar cold fragrance of Shin Yuaning. Gu Jing unconsciously whispering in a clingy tone they had never heard before, too noisy. Wife, why are you asleep yet? Shin Yuaning letting out a soft laugh, her movements to pat his back and soothe him incredibly gentle. Good husband, go back to sleep. I won't be noisy anymore. Tut, 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 the call was hung up bluntly. Shin Suhan's hand trembled as she held the phone, gripping it so hard her knuckles turned white, nearly crushing the device. Tears fell down her face, which was distorted by jealousy. Shin Kara lay on her bed, her eyes also bloodshot, her hands shredding the bedsheets, her heart bleeding with intense resentment. Only Shen Mengji lowered her eyes, her sharp gaze secretly calculating some crazy plan. The next day, using the excuse of attending a Shen family banquet, the three of them, regardless of their unhealed wounds, coincidentally processed their early discharges at the same time. They couldn't sit around waiting to die for a single second longer. Before the family banquet officially began, I held Shin Yuaning's hand and gently circled her waist as we appeared before everyone. Today, Yuaning wore a pale pink silk dress. The exquisite design highlighted her grace without losing any of her regal elegance. She stood close to me, a man in a perfectly tailored suit, exuding a powerful aura. Our combination was like a perfect painting, a match made in heaven. The Shin family relatives attending the party, upon meeting my gaze, all hurried to nod and greet me with reverence. Their attitude was a complete reversal of their previous hidden contempt and mockery. Now, standing in this position as the husband of the family head, no one dared to gossip or look down on me as they once did. I understood the fickle nature of these people perfectly, and I had no intention of exposing or arguing with them. I simply smiled slightly and led Yuaning toward the main hall. However, as we passed through the garden area, Yuaning suddenly stopped. Shin Yuaning, her lips curving slightly, her eyes flashing with interest, her voice full of deep meaning. I am going to show you a good show today. Our three nieces did something wrong. The punishment from the other day doesn't seem like enough to make up for the pain they caused you, does it? I paused, a feeling of immense warmth and emotion rising in my heart. In the past, when I was pursuing the three Shin sisters, my biological parents never cared if I was being wrong. They only hoped I could use any means to please them to facilitate a marriage that would benefit the clan. Even if I was covered in wounds, they would only offer a few perfunctory words of comfort before continuing to chase their careers. The old master and old madam of the Shin family lived in seclusion all year and didn't interfere in worldly affairs. Though they liked me, they couldn't always stand up for me, and the parents of those three girls didn't even need to be mentioned. They always sided blindly with their daughters. For the longest time, the only person I could rely on was myself. And yet now, here was a powerful woman standing firmly in front of me, trusting me and defending me unconditionally. Gu Jingyan suddenly looking up at Shin Yuaning, instinctively reaching out to grab her sleeve, his voice soft but hopeful. Yuaning, can I really lean on you? Shin Yuaning nodding without hesitation, her eyes filled with absolute indulgence. Of course. As long as you are my husband, I will forever be your harbor and your strongest support. With that, she pulled me along a path toward the artificial lake in the garden, choosing the long bench hidden behind some trees to sit down. Looking at the clear, rippling surface of the lake, I couldn't help but feel a slight tension. The trauma of nearly drowning when I was thrown into a lake before was still vivid, making me shiver at the sight of deep water. Shin Yuaning noticing my trembling, she immediately reached out and gripped my hand tightly, interlacing our fingers to pass on her warmth. Don't be afraid. I am here. I will never let you fall into any danger again. Just then, from the other side of the garden, the three Shin sisters were also hurrying toward the lake. Behind them were the frantic footsteps of a young man running to catch up. It was Lin Hao. Lin Hao crying until his eyes were bloodshot, walking unsteadily but still gritting his teeth as he caught Shin Karu's arm, his voice tragic. Mengji, Suan, Karu, the engagement grandmother gave wasn't my decision. Besides, I really love you all. Do you really hate me that much? Lin Hao pointing at himself, sobbing. You once said that when I risked my life to save you from the rubble of that earthquake, you loved me and only had me in your hearts. With such deep feelings, how can you just let go so easily? If you were going to be this heartless, what was the point of me being covered in scars to save your lives? Hearing those hypocritical words, the three of them stopped in their tracks. Shen Mengji violently throwing off Lin Hao's hand, her face cold to the extreme, her dark eyes flaring with rage. You saved us. The wounds on your body are because of us. Lin Hao, stop trying to twist the truth. We wasted years thinking you were our savior and treating you so well. Look at yourself. What makes you think you can still treat the three of us like fools to be led by the nose? As she spoke, Shen Mengji pulled a stack of photos from her back and threw them straight at Lin Hao's face. The photos scattered to the ground. The lawn. Lam Hao's body shook violently. He trembled as he leaned down to pick up the photographs. With just one glance, his pupils constricted in terror. He didn't even dare to look at them closely. The filthy memories of that year immediately rushed back into his mind with searing clarity. Back then, the three Tha M sisters, acting as representatives of the Tha M group, had traveled to Province S for a charity donation ceremony. Lam Hao had tagged along as their luggage carrier. Unfortunately, a sudden earthquake struck, burying all three sisters under the rubble. Lam Hao was trapped nearby as well. At that moment, consumed by peak panic and dread, he had only one thought: survival. When the rescue team arrived, he was the first to scream for help. The second he was pulled out, he forced his body to go limp, pretending to faint so he could be carried away on a stretcher. He never uttered a single word about the three Tha M heiresses lying unconscious beneath the concrete right next to him. In contrast, upon hearing news of the earthquake, Ko Ka and Achin had defied all warnings and rushed against the tide of evacuees to reach the scene, joining the search efforts as a volunteer. It was Ko Ka and Achin who risked his life, using his bare hands to dig through the earth and stone to pull the sisters out. The slender, fair hands of the noble young master were shredded by jagged rocks, reduced to a bloody mess with several fingers broken. Ko Ka and Achin's body was covered in fractures and lacerations. He nearly died from sheer exhaustion. But by a cruel twist of fate, as Ko Ka and Achin struggled to carry the last person out and collapsed from blood loss, Lam Hao reappeared. At that point, Lam Hao had been complaining about the poor quality of the relief camp's food and, certain the three sisters were dead, was planning to flee. By sheer coincidence, he stumbled upon the unconscious Ko Ka and Achin lying next to the three rescued women. Seeing it God's an opportunity, Lam Hao's greed took over. He used a rock to strike his own hand and forehead to create fake injuries, then called for medical staff to take the sisters to the emergency room, brazenly claiming the credit as his own. And most ruthlessly, he heartlessly abandoned Ko Ka and Achin to die amidst the ruins. Had a patrolling rescue team not happened upon him by chance, Ko Ka and Achin would have perished there. Looking at the drone footage captured by the search and rescue team, indisputable evidence, Lam Hao's mind went blank. His lips quivered incessantly as he struggled to find an explanation. Lam Hao faced bloodless, stammering, I didn't lie to you, it really was me. These things are fakes. You have to believe me. It is Ko Ka and Achin, isn't it? Yes, using technology to forge photos to frame me. Yes, already got your aunt. Why isn't he satisfied? Yes, clearly greedy, trying to tear us apart to take all three of you for himself. Slap. A crisp, violent slap landed squarely on his face, snapping his head to the side and tearing the corner of his mouth. Tha M looking at her hand with disgust, immediately pulling out an antiseptic wipe to clean each finger, her tone as sharp as a blade. Do you think everyone is as vile and despicable as you? Just thinking about how he treated a common thief and ingrate like he was our savior all these years makes me want to vomit. I am a doctor. The only reason your fake injuries fooled me back then was because I trusted you too much to even doubt you. Now that the evidence is right before your eyes, you still have the audacity to blame Ko Ka and Achin? Tha M and Hu, feeling that her older sister's slap wasn't nearly enough to vent her rage, stepped forward and grabbed Lam Hao by the collar, her voice low and menacing. Because of you, because of your sickening lies, we hurt Ka and Achin countless times. If you hadn't deceived us, things between us and him would never have reached this tragic dead end. With that, Tha M and Hu shoved him with all her might. Splash! Lam Hao lost his balance and tumbled backward into the freezing artificial lake. Tha M and Hu standing on the shore, arms crossed as she watched Lam Hao flounder in the water, her heart filled only with cold satisfaction. There, stay down there and get a taste of what Ka and Achin felt. Lam Hao thrashing wildly in the water, panicking as he choked. Help! Cough! Help me! I can swim! Please! Forgive me! Cough! I was wrong! Tha M and Hu sneering, her response cold enough. Stop pretending! We know perfectly well you can swim. Do you think that by mimicking Ka and Achin's plight we'll feel pity and jump in to save you? Keep dreaming. Tha M and Tha M stood by with indifferent, stony expressions, having absolutely no intention of calling for help. After a period of frantic struggling, Lam Hao realized no one was coming. He was forced to conserve his energy and clumsily paddled himself toward the shore. Lam Hao clinging to the stone edge, gasping for air and weeping. Ka and Hu, I really am sorry. I admit Ka and Achin was the one who dug you out. Fine, but if I hadn't run to get someone to carry you, you might not have survived until the nurses arrived. I basically saved half of your lives. He tried to use both hands to haul his upper body onto the shore, but just as he emerged, thud, Tha-Mong lifted her sharp stiletto heel and ruthlessly stomped on the back of Lam Hao's hand. Lam Hao screamed in pain as he tried to pull his hand back. Tha-Mong kicked him squarely in the shoulder without mercy. His entire body lost balance once more and fell back into the water with a heavy splash. He struggled to surface again and swam to a different corner to climb out. But this time, Tha-En was waiting. She swung her leg and kicked him directly in the face, sending him reeling back into the lake. The scene repeated several times until Lam Hao had swallowed a belly full of water. Gasping for air and clinging feebly to the side of the pool with no strength left to resist, the three women finally let him be. Tha-En squatting down, her eyes cold and filled with loathing as she looked at the man soaking in the water. Lam Hao, if you know what's good for you, you'll crawl to grandmother tomorrow and ask to cancel the engagement yourself. Otherwise, we will never let you off easily. Today was just the beginning, a small lesson for your insolence. If you still don't know your place, you will find out exactly what the devastating consequences of offending the Tha-Em family look like. During that razor-sharp threat, Lam Hao felt as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. His body curled into a ball as shivers ran down his spine. Overwhelmed by terror and exhaustion, his eyes rolled back and he lost consciousness completely, floating limply on the surface. Tha-Mong dusting off her hands, nonchalantly calling out to a servant in the distance, "You there, fish this piece of trash out and take him back to his room. Get him out of my sight." Tha-En and Tha-Mknh remained composed, adjusting their clothes as they prepared to head toward the main hall. In a hidden corner, I witnessed the entire drama. I turned to look at Tha-Mknh beside me, feeling a trace of confusion in my heart. Ko-Knh and frowning slightly. Uyin. Most of the mistakes that caused my suffering were directly committed by those three sisters. Why did you only provide evidence for them to punish Lam Hao? Are you planning to cover for them? The moment the question left my lips, I regretted it. Tha-Mknh, Tha-Mong, Tha-En, and Tha-Mknh were a family. The bonds of blood were undeniable. If Tha-Mknh wanted to protect her nieces and show them leniency, who was an outsider like me to question it? I instinctively pulled back, lowering my head, my gaze flickering away. Ko-Knh pressing his lips together, speaking awkwardly, "I am sorry, just pretend I didn't say anything." Tha-Mknh immediately catching my hesitation and sensitivity. She wasn't angry. Instead, she gave a doting smile and reached out to tilt my chin up, forcing me to look into her eyes. "Are you silly? Rest assured, those who do wrong will certainly be punished. If their parents didn't know how to raise them, then as their elders, we have a responsibility to teach them ourselves. I told you by my side, you have the right to do whatever you like. I will always be your support, regardless of who the opponent is." Hearing those firm words, my heart skipped a beat. Ko-Knh nodding messily, instinctively covering his reddening ears in embarrassment as his gaze shifted unnaturally. I understand." Suddenly, just as I turned my head, splash, 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 three heavy thuds rang out in succession as objects hit the water. I turned back in surprise to see Tha-Mnh's black-clad bodyguards. Following her orders, they had suddenly intercepted the three Tha-Em sisters and, without a word, grabbed them by their necks and hurled them into the freezing artificial lake. The lake area, usually tranquil, was now an unending cacophony of noise. The screams and frantic splashing of the three pampered heiresses were pathetic. Only then did Tha-Mnh leisurely take my hand and lead me out from the shadows, appearing before the three women struggling in the water. Tha-Mnh looking down from above, her voice majestic and icy. "How did you all conspire to bully and corner Ka-Nh? Now, you should taste that experience for yourselves. The power and status of the Tha-Em family were given to you to lead, not to bully the weak and trample over your benefactor. If you cannot learn empathy and how to bow your heads in apology, then in the future, don't even think about using the Tha-Em name to sweat her around." The latter half of her sentence sounded light, but it carried a terrifying weight that sent the three in the water into a state of extreme panic. While they were capable women who didn't rely entirely on the family to build their careers, being stripped of the Tha-Em name and expelled from the clan would be a monumental humiliation enough to ruin their entire lives. After a frantic struggle to get ashore, the three stood there dripping wet, shivering uncontrollably. Their exquisite makeup had washed away, and their soaked evening gowns clung to their bodies, making them look utterly miserable. Their entire being radiated profound regret and despair. Tha-Mong speaking hoarsely, her bloodshot eyes looking up at me. "I'm sorry, Knh. I was wrong." This was the first time in her life that this arrogant eldest miss had humbled herself to apologize to me. Tha-Mnh hugging her trembling body, her voice thick with remorse. "Knh. All these years, we were blind. We were wrong. We mistook our savior, and we mistook our own hearts. It is my fault. Thaam Ka Nhu on her pale face, her tearful eyes stood out, staring at me as she pleaded softly, Ka Nhu, I am sorry. Is there any chance for me to make it up to you? I'll do anything. Your interests, I am willing to learn them all. Can we start over? Hearing those desperate pleas, I felt no pity. Ka Nhu an expression calm, responding gently, but ruthlessly, we cannot. I've said it many times, the matter of the alliance was decided by the elders of both families. It couldn't be avoided. I had already given up and no longer loved you. I only stayed by your side because of that cursed engagement. Your betrayal back then, wasn't it the most perfect outcome? I took a breath and continued, currently, I appear before you with only one identity. I am your elder, your aunt's husband. As I spoke, I tightened my grip on Thaam Nh's hand, looking down at them with a gaze of pure contempt. Ka Nhu smirking, so, what should you call me? Has being thrown into the water not cleared your heads yet? Have you still not remembered? A long silence followed. The humiliation was like a slap to the face, but the three of them had no choice. They lowered their heads, gritted their teeth, and choked out that bitter title. The three Thaam sisters muffled, sobbing, Uncle. I smiled with satisfaction. Ka Nhu turning to Thaam Nh, speaking tenderly, it is time for the party. Let us go, dear. Thaam Nh and I intertwined our fingers and turned to walk away. Between us, there existed a seamless understanding, an invisible wall that shut out all those suffering, regretful people behind us. At the family banquet, Thaam Nh was incredibly attentive. She constantly noted my preferences and personally used serving chopsticks to place food into my bowl. Thaam Nh smiling sweetly, this is the black pepper beef you like most. Eat a bit more to regain your strength. Ka Nhu smiling and nodding, eating heartily, thank you, wife. The old matriarch Thaam, sitting in the seat of honor, watched this warm scene with satisfaction, a constant smile on her face. However, as the banquet neared its end, Lam Hao suddenly staggered in through the door. He was still wearing the waterlogged clothes from the lake, and the wound on his forehead was oozing blood. He looked utterly wretched. Thud! He knelt firmly on the stone floor, his hand hitting the ground with a loud crack in front of the old matriarch. Lam Hao weeping hysterically, his voice hoarse, Old matriarch. Old matriarch. Please see justice. Please order the cancellation of the engagement between me and the three young misses. They never liked me. Today, they even gained up to push me into the lake to drown me. I may be poor, but I have my own integrity. I know that in the past, when they said they liked me and treated me well, it was all a lie. I truly cannot bear this cursed engagement. As he spoke, he continued to count out loudly, the blood from his forehead mixing with his tears. Lam Hao shouting, the one they truly and deeply love is Ka Nhu, so they taking their anger out on me. Please, old matriarch, fulfill their wishes. Cancel the engagement and let my mother and me leave the Thaam family. The scene immediately went dead silent. The guests sat with mouths agape, staring at this shocking drama. The old master and old matriarch Thaam sat at the head of the table, their faces turning as dark as coal. Thump. The old matriarch slammed her dragon-headed cane against the ground, the harsh sound drawing every eye. Old matriarch Thaam bellowing in anger, Thaam Moen Kit, Thaam Nhan, Thaam Ka Nhu, you three, get out here right now and explain exactly what is going on. Crash! The old master was so enraged he threw the teacup in his hand onto the floor. The porcelain shattered into pieces, tea splashing everywhere. The three Thaam sisters, who had just changed into dry clothes, heard the roar and stepped out in fear. They immediately dropped to their knees, their faces pale. They looked barely better than Lam Hao. Thaam Moen Kit face set with determination, head held high, grandfather, I was wrong, I made mistakes, but I truly do not want to marry Lam Hao. He is a despicable man who deceived us for years, faking his identity as our savior and making us blindly reject the alliance with Ka Nhu, but now I see his true face. I absolutely do not want to be bound by an engagement to a man of such low character who betrays his betters. Please, forgive us. Thaam Nhan firmly picking up the thread, grandmother, I feel the same as my sister. I never truly loved Lam Hao, and I certainly cannot take him as a husband now. Please, cancel this ridiculous marriage. Thaam Ka Nhu biting her lip resolutely, me too. A forced marriage bound to a fraud is meaningless. If you force me to live my whole life with a man I despise, I'd rather run away and live a life of wandering, never setting foot in the Thaam house again. Hearing these blunt defiances, the old matriarch Thaam only let out a cold, faint laugh. Old matriarch Thaam sweeping her gaze over her three granddaughters, is that what you truly think? The three sisters in unison, yes. Old matriarch Thaam letting out a deep sigh, shaking her head in utter disappointment, you truly disappoint me. You think yourselves so clever and talented, but if it weren't for UNINH investigating and revealing the evidence, when would you have ever realized that KNHN was the one who risked his life for you? In all these years, did you ever once take the initiative to investigate the matter thoroughly? Did you ever once listen to or believe a single explanation from KNHN? The old matriarch tapped her cane against the floor. No, you did none of that. You were arrogant, believing only in your own foolish thoughts. If we relied on your pea-sized brains, you'd probably still be dancing on this boy's strings until the day you died. Those harsh but perceptive words were like a sledgehammer to their hearts. Their faces turned as white as paper, and cold sweat poured down. They were completely unable to argue. Everything their grandmother said was the truth. Had their aunt not exposed him, they might have forever remained deluded by Lat Mhao, continuing to join him in hurting KNHN countless more times. Thinking back to their apologies and pleas for KNHN's forgiveness earlier, they realized how hollow, ridiculous, and shameless they must have seemed. Many THM relatives and guests watching the drama began to whisper among themselves. That's right, those petty, lowly tricks of that Lat Mhao boy could only fool 3 young girls lacking life experience. No matter how many times they were advised, they wouldn't listen, stubbornly clinging to their delusional love. And deep. Those 3 might have the ability to manage a company, but their ability to judge character is trash. They aren't even fit to carry KNHN's shoes. Hey, the way those 3 are looking at KNHN is strange. Don't tell me they still haven't let go of him. Oh my god, KNHN is their uncle now. If this gets out, where will the THM family hide their faces? Hearing the stinging words from their relatives, the 3 sisters couldn't help but think of my previous situation. While I was persistently pursuing them and being trampled upon, I had heard similar insults and mockery from their friends. The young master of the Ko family, why lower himself to lick their heels? Is he that desperate for a woman? Chasing after a woman's skirt like a dog, he has no shame. In a bit, they'll just toss him a bone and a few kind words, and he'll probably come wagging his tail again. With thick skin, only at this moment, experiencing the feeling of being publicly shamed, did THMONGKT, THN, and THMKNHU understand the humiliation and profound pain I had once endured. All 3 were ashen-faced, their bodies swaying as if about to collapse. The old matriarch coughed a few times, signaling for silence. Old matriarch THM speaking with authority. How you blindly bullied and tormented KNHN, your grandfather and I know in our hearts. UNINH is his wife. She will have her own way of teaching you and demanding justice for her husband. We will not interfere. But currently, look at how you are treating Lat Mhao. Even if he is a fraud, by making such a scene, where are you putting the honor of the THM family? At first, you said you liked him and fought to the death to protect him. Now you don't want to marry and are fighting to the death to cancel it. Do you treat marriage as a joke? The old lady slammed her hand on the table. The matter of the engagement with Lat Mhao has already been announced to the world. There's absolutely no reason to withdraw it and make us a laughingstock, unless the 3 of you can find a suitable, equal match to marry in his place. Then prepare for your wedding to Lat Mhao. Having finished her piece, the old matriarch stood up angrily, leaning on a servant to leave the hall. Seeing this, THMUNINH immediately stepped forward to support her. THMUNINH gently, mother, let me and KNHN help you back to your room. After the 3 of us left, the last light in THMONGKT's eyes went out instantly. THMONGKT muttering in despair, tears falling. No more chances. There really are no more chances left. THN and THMKNHU also knelt on the ground, weeping in silence. A long while later, THMKNHU clenched her fists, practically wrenching a stubborn sentence from the depths of her throat. THMKNHU shaking her head frantically. It's impossible. KNHN pursued us for so long, loved us more than his own life. How can he say he doesn't like us just like that? He knows me so well. He memorized every line and every role I play, cherished so many items related to me. In his heart, he must still have feelings for me. As she spoke, she laughed and cried bitterly, suddenly staggering to her feet and running toward her bedroom like a madwoman. She ransacked the room to find the box containing the safety talisman I had returned. She clutched the notes I had handwritten for her, filled with a morbid attachment and obsession. THMKNHU burying her face in the papers, sobbing. For all those years, he never gave up. If it weren't for that cursed engagement forcing him into an alliance with the THM family, he would never have chosen to marry our aunt. It's all my fault, because I was stupid and didn't see my own heart sooner. We missed each other. He and aunt just got married. How could they have a bond as deep as our 10+ years of childhood friendship? Her gaze pierced through her tears, gradually becoming firm and deranged. That's it. I have to win him back. THN and THMONGKT staggered in behind her, hearing every word of their youngest sister's monologue. In their hearts, they felt as if they had caught a life-saving straw, and they too began to desperately deceive themselves. It could be the truth. After all, his obsession and humble love for us in the past were real. Can someone really let go of a decade-long relationship that quickly? Even if it's for the alliance, could he really have no feelings for Anne? Tha bit her lip. She didn't believe it. She also stumbled back to her room, pulling out the box containing filled essential oil blends and the medical notebooks I had once written. Those notebooks detailing sleep aids and stress-relieving acupressure points. Dry, boring knowledge, yet meticulously written in K&H's hand. At this moment, they were like priceless treasures to her. If he didn't love me, how could he have been so persistent and sacrificial? He must still love me. Tha stroked the handwriting, smiling like a fool. Knock. Knock. Suddenly, there was a knock at her door. Tha frowned in annoyance and opened the door, only to be met with the disgusting face of the person she least wanted to see. Lam Hao was wearing a thin silk shirt, the buttons intentionally undone to reveal his pale skin and collarbones. He seemed completely unaware that his seductive appearance was inappropriate, clutching the wound on his forehead that was still bleeding as he looked at Tha with teary, watery eyes. Lam Hao voiced coy and weak to Han, "My forehead hurts so much. There's no one else around. Can you help me apply some medicine?" But contrary to his expectations, there was no trace of pity or attraction in Tha eyes. They were filled only with annoyance and a revolted coldness. Tha taking a step back as if avoiding a plague, her voice sharp, "If it hurts, crawl to the infirmary or call an ambulance. I am not your private doctor, and I certainly have no obligation to serve and care for a fraud." Without hesitation, she grabbed the handle and slammed the door. Bam! The door shut right in Lam Hao's face, as if she were fleeing from a hideous beast. Lam Hao biting his lip, stomping his feet, his face twisted and ugly as he yelled through the door, "Tha You say you don't want to marry me, and I've already humbled myself to beg the old matriarch to cancel the engagement. What more do you want? I just want our relationship to go back to how it was. Stealing K&H's credit was my mistake, and you already punished me by throwing me in the lake. Can't you forgive me just once and give me a chance to start over?" He yelled until his voice was hoarse, but Tha remained silent inside. On the contrary, Tha Moengkt and Tha K&Hu in the adjacent rooms were disturbed by the noise and opened their doors with cold, irritated expressions. Tha Moengkt frowning, shouting, "What are you screaming about in the middle of the night?" Seeing them, Lam Hao immediately lowered his voice, pouting as if he were wronged and pitiful. Lam Hao, tears welling up, pleading, "Moengkt, K&Hu, I just wanted to help me with my medicine," but she locked the door. Can you help me?" Tha K&Hu quickly backing away, waving him off, "Not interested. If my sister won't do it, neither will I." "Are your hands broken? Don't you have hands to do it yourself, or does this house not have mirrors?" Tha Moengkt chiming in coldly, "Your business has nothing to do with us from now on. Get back to your room." Lam Hao's face froze for a moment, his hands hidden in his sleeves clenching into fists. He gritted his teeth, swallowing his rage as he continued to play the role of a kind, understanding victim. Lam Hao lowering his head, pretending to sigh deeply, "Moengkt, K&Hu, to Han, I know you can forget K&H. I know my place. I would never be an obstacle to your happiness. I really just want you to be happy." He looked up, a flash of cunning in his eyes. "I have a plan that can help you win back K&H's heart. I'll act as a shield against the old matriarch while helping you arrange a meeting with K&H. Just follow my lead, and he'll definitely be touched and return to you." At the mention of K&H and winning me back, Tha door opened slightly. She stood behind it, holding her breath to listen. Tha Moengkt raising an eyebrow, skeptical. "Oh, really? Let us hear this plan of yours." Lam Hao's lips curled into a smirk he couldn't quite hide. Lam Hao lowering his voice, whispering, "I'll use the excuse of an apology to invite K&H into a bar. When he arrives, I'll slip a stimulant into his drink. When the drug takes effect and he loses his reason, you will appear like saviors to rescue him from the chaos and take him to a hotel. Once the rice is cooked, he'll surely be moved. Besides, once it's done, how could he refuse you?" As he spoke, he pulled out his phone and sent a message to me right in front of them. "K&H, I know I've done many wrong things. I want to sincerely apologize to you one last time. Afterward, my mother and I will leave the Tha family and never bother you again. Can we meet one last time so I can make amends?" Not long after, the screen lit up. I replied with a simple, short word, "Fine." Lam Hao smiling brightly, showing the screen to the three women. "See?" He agreed. He followed up by sending the time and place: tomorrow night at 6 p.m. VIP room at Nightsheet Bar. Be there or be square. The expressions of the three sisters softened slightly. Tha K&Hu nodding slightly, her cold gaze sweeping over Lam Hao. "Fine. You go ahead and prepare the plan." We'll be there on time tomorrow. Seeing Thought Mon GKT and Thought M the Ha and also not in agreement, the smile on Lam Hao's face grew wider. He turned and walked back to his room, humming a tune, certain that his despicable plan had fooled them all. However, immediately after Lam Hao sent the message to his thug acquaintances to procure the drugs, thwack, a heavy blow landed on the back of his neck, sending him into darkness. He slumped onto the carpet, unconscious. Thought Ka Nhu shaking the aluminum baseball bat in her hand, her eyes filled with contempt and disgust. You dare plot to drug Ka Nhn? A piece of trash like you must be tired of living. She used her foot to flip Lam Hao over, snatched the phone from his pocket, and tossed it to Thought the Ha-en. Thought the Ha-en frowning in disgust, using Lam Hao's thumb to unlock the screen. Seeing the message trail of the drug transaction, her eyes flashed with a cold, razor-like light. She immediately drafted a reply to the lead thought. Brother Vu Ong, tomorrow, instead of the person in the photo, use a stimulant 3 times stronger on me. Once it kicks in, do whatever you want, bring in as many women as you like. Remember, no matter who investigates later, never mention the name Thought M to Ha-en. Understood. The reply came back instantly. Understood. The brief exchange reeked of money and filth. Thought the Ha-en clutching the phone, her face like ice since he likes using drugs so much. Let him taste what it feels like to be tormented by them until he wishes he were dead. Thought Mon GKT, arms crossed, a look of extreme danger in her eyes. That's not enough. Thought Nhu, call the bodyguards. Tie him up immediately and dump him in the VIP room of Nightshade Bar tonight. Keep him locked in there, wait for the drug to take effect, and let those thugs handle him. The 3 sisters looked at each other, and a ruthless plan for retribution was set into motion that very night. The following evening, exactly 6 p.m. Even though I knew perfectly well this meeting was a trap set by Lam Hao, I decided to go to Nightshade Bar. However, I brought Thought Minh with me, Coca and squeezing Thought Minh's hand as we entered the dark corridor of the bar. My voice anxious. Minh, this place is complicated. If anything happens, stay close to me, don't leave my side. Thought Minh, a doting smile flashing in her eyes as she nodded, squeezing my hand back. Don't worry. With me here, you can do whatever you want. No one will dare touch a single hair on your head. We walked straight toward the reserved VIP room. As we approached, the sounds of chaotic noise, labored breathing, and horrifying moans drifted out from within. I kicked the door wide open. The scene inside caused. I couldn't help but frown. Under the hazy, dim lights, Lam Hao was writhing on a long sofa. The effects of a potent aphrodisiac had stripped him of all reason, leaving his skin as flushed as a boiled shrimp. He was frantically tearing at his own clothes, his mouth letting out a constant, pathetic whimper of desire. Surrounding him were 3 or 4 scantily clad women of the night. Their hands, tipped with sharp, talon-like nails, competed to stroke and caress every inch of his body. They couldn't care less if the man lying there was the original target as long as there was money involved and the man was a willing participant. It was enough for them to indulge. One woman laughing provocatively as she stroked Lam Hao's face. Oh my handsome, take it slow. You took such a strong dose yourself, didn't you? Come on here just so we sisters could serve you. Don't be in such a rush. At this moment, a fragile sliver of consciousness remained within Lam Hao. He was consumed by an extreme sense of desperation and panic. Never in his wildest dreams did he imagine things would turn out like this. That drug was clearly something he had prepared to ruin Cocan, and so why was he the one drugged and humiliated now? Lam Hao screaming hoarsely, frantically swinging his arms to push the surrounding women away. Get out, all of you, don't touch me. But his strength was failing him, and his weak shoves only emboldened the women to press closer. His tattered clothes were nearly stripped bare. Hearing the door open, those in the room finally looked toward the entrance. Lam Hao raised his bloodshot eyes, and what met his gaze was the sight of me and Tham Ien Din standing at the doorway, coldly witnessing the entirety of his humiliation. I looked at the scene, feeling not even a ripple of emotion in my heart. I pulled Tham Ien Din back half a step to shield her eye from the filth, our fingers still tightly intertwined. Though I didn't know how the trap had been reversed, I understood perfectly well. Originally, all this depravity had been intended for me. Cocannon speaking coldly, breaking the lewd atmosphere. It seems you were busy today. We have nothing left to discuss. As I spoke, I prepared to turn and leave. Seeing me about to depart, a fire of resentment flared up within Lam Hao, momentarily overpowering the drug's effects. His bloodshot eyes bulged as he desperately rolled off the sofa, crawling across the dirty floor toward me, Lam Hao pointing at my face, screaming maniacally, Cocannon, this is all your fault. It's because of you that I am in this miserable state. You deserve to die. Ignoring his nearly naked state, he lunged forward, his nails aimed at my face. Cocannon with a slight smirk, moving with agile grace to step aside. Lam Hao missed his mark, falling face first onto the grimy floor. I kept a firm grip on Tham Yen Din's hand, composed as I stepped back to maintain a safe distance. Ko Kanan looking down from above, his voice dripping with mockery. You went to such great lengths to design a trap to harm me, yet you were too stupid to realize you were being played. You don't blame the one who set you up, you don't blame yourself, but you turned your hatred on me? Truly laughable. Did I force you to buy the drugs? Did I force you to set the trap? I shook my head, my eyes filled with contempt. From the beginning, Lam Hao had been the one playing dirty tricks, but he had hoisted himself by his own petard. Karma was instantaneous. Suddenly, looking at the regal Tham Yen Din standing beside me, I remembered something from an auction a few weeks ago. Ko Kanan turning to Tham Yen Din, his tone as casual as if sharing idle gossip. That's right, Yen Din, I forgot to mention. At a previous auction, I bought a Trong tin watch worth 100 million, intended as a gift for you. But before I could give it to you, he arrogantly snatched it and smashed it to pieces. To this day, he hasn't paid me a single cent in compensation. Upon hearing this, Tham Yen Din's expression immediately darkened, and a layer of chill and killing intent radiated from her. Tham Yen Din, her phoenix eyes narrowing, her voice ringing out with absolute authority. He dared to destroy a gift my husband worked so hard to win for me? Fine, I'll have my lawyers retrieve the surveillance footage from that auction. Destroying property worth 100 million without the means to compensate, that charge alone is enough for me to let him rot in prison until his bones turn to dust. That cold decree was like a bucket of ice water to the face, instantly snapping Lam Hao back to his senses. Panic and utter terror were etched across his sweat-drenched face. Who in this city didn't know Tham Yen Din's ruthless methods? Once she spoke, even if he were innocent, escape would be difficult, let alone the fact that he actually had smashed that watch. Lam Hao crawling closer, frantically kowtowing and weeping in plea. President Tham, young Master Ko, I am sorry, it was my fault, I was blind, I beg you show mercy, don't send me to prison, please, I'll work like a slave to make amends. He continued to wail and beg, the drug's effect making his voice rasp with a pathetic tremor. But he had provoked the wrong person. Tham Yen Din didn't even grant him a stray glance. Her eyes were focused entirely on the man standing beside her. Tham Yen Din dismissively waving her hand toward the bodyguards waiting at the door, leaving no room for negotiation. If you do wrong, you must pay the price. Seize him and hand him over to the police. As soon as she finished, two burly guards stormed in, hoisting Lam Hao by his armpits and dragging him out. His screams and pleas faded down the hallway until they vanished. Just then, from the elevator, Tham Mong Chit, Van Han, and Tham Ka and Chu rushed in. They were panting, their clothes slightly disheveled, clearly having run at breakneck speed to get here. The three Than sisters in unison, their eyes glued to me, voices filled with fake concern. Kanan, we got stuck in traffic, so we a little late. Are you okay? I glanced at the three faces pretending to be worried, feeling nothing but nausea. I didn't bother to reply, nor did I look at them again. Tham Mong Chit seemed unbothered by my coldness. She completely ignored the presence of Tham Yen Din standing right there, stepping forward with a massive, brilliant bouquet of red roses. Tham Mong Chit looking at me longingly, her tone more humble than ever before. Kanan, I swear I will never let you suffer the grievances you endured in the past ever again. Look, these are the Ecuadorian roses you once said were your favorite. I meticulously picked every single one myself. Do you like them? Witnessing her brazen attempt to steal someone else's husband, I was genuinely stunned into silence. Was she insane? The bottom line was I was now her uncle. Her youngest aunt was standing right next to me. Had she grown the heart of a lion to dare utter such sappy confessions in front of the head of the Tham family? Tham Yen Din's eyes turned icy, emitting a suffocating frost. Without a word, she snatched the massive bouquet from Mong Chit's hands and hurled it to the ground, using her heels to grind the fresh red petals into the dirt. Tham Yen Din, her voice like ancient ice, commanding, it seems my previous punishments weren't enough for you to recognize your place. Guards, pin the eldest miss down, since she dared to bring people to vandalize the marital home of Ka and Chen and me. Return to the villa immediately and throw every single item in her room out onto the street. Kanan once stood in the rain all day because she tricked him, so tie her up and make her kneel in the ancestral hall under the pouring rain. Treat her to our family discipline properly. Force her to kowtow before the ancestors' tablets and shout Ko Kanan is my uncle. Have her shouted until the head of hers never forgets it again. Tham Mong Chit's face turned as white as a sheet, her body trembling under her aunt's terrifying pressure, yet she still stubbornly reached out, clutching my sleeve and refusing to let go. Tham Mong Chit, tears streaming down her face, sobbing in plea. Kanan, I know this political marriage with Anne has no love in it. We grew up together. I was the first person you ever devoted yourself to. That proves the person you truly love has always been me, right? I was wrong before, I was blind. But I swear I won't let you face the public's judgment alone anymore. I don't care what your current status is, I just want you. I just want to be with you. Every word she spoke sounded sincerer and utterly sorrowful. If this were my foolish younger self, I might have felt a spark of emotion. But now, my heart was calloused and had long since stopped fluttering for any of the three of them. Cannon coldly prying her hand off and shoving it away. I've said it before, my only status now is your elder. I admit I once had delusions and feelings I shouldn't have had for you. But after being insulted and trampled upon by you countless times, my heart died long ago. This marriage is a perfect escape for me. Furthermore, do you think you really love me that much? Stop lying to yourself. What's tormenting you now is just obsession, possessiveness, and the unwillingness to lose a familiar toy. I smiled mockingly, my eyes filled with indifference. Mom Chit's face shifted from pale to a sallow gray. Her lips trembled as she sought a rebuttal but found none, eventually repeating a weak, hollow sentence. No. At nodded. At that moment, Vandahan pushed through, shoving Mom Chit aside. She hurriedly pulled an employment contract from her handbag for a medical research institute. Vandahan, her eyes frantic, speaking rapidly. Cannon, I know you don't like eldest sister. The one you truly care about is me, isn't it? Look, this is an employment contract for a secret medical research institute abroad. Just sign this, and I can use the pretext of work to take you out of the country immediately. We can run away together, abandon our identities and assets, and hide somewhere where no one knows us. We can be a normal couple, okay? I'll spend my whole life making up for my past mistakes. Let's start over, please. As she spoke, she tremblingly offered the contract, her eyes full of wretched hope. Before I could speak, Tham Ka Nhu lunged forward from behind, pulling out a velvet box containing a pair of expensive wedding rings. In front of dozens of eyes in the bar, this arrogant superstar suddenly dropped to one knee. Tham Ka Nhu looking up at me, her eyes glistening with tears, her voice urged, Cannon, don't listen to them. I am the one who understands and likes you best. Run away with me, marry me. I love you, and I want to spend the rest of my life taking care of you. Wherever I go to film, I'll take you with me. My fans are rational, they will love you too. We'll go public with the whole world. There won't be any more misunderstandings or barriers, will you? The diamond, as large as a pigeon's egg, sparkled brilliantly under the bar's dim lights. In the depths of her eyes, there was only sincerity and fervid passion. Watching her three nieces dare to use such provocative words and attempt to steal her husband right in front of her, Tham Din's face turned as black as soot. A fire of jealousy threatened to consume the powerful queen's reason. Sensing my wife's impending eruption, I immediately reached out, intertwining my fingers with hers. As the warmth from my palm transferred to her, I gave her a gentle, reassuring smile. Then, when I turned to face Vandahan and Tham Ka Nhu, my gaze instantly returned to being as cold and sharp as a blade. Cannon, my voice steady and firm. Haven't I been clear enough? I am extremely fulfilled and satisfied with my current life. And let me state this again, I have never loved any of you. If it weren't for that damn engagement from the previous generation forced upon me, I wouldn't have wanted anything to do with you for my entire fucking life. As I spoke, I ruthlessly snatched the contract from Vandahan's hand, shredded it into tiny pieces, and tossed them into the air. The scraps of paper fluttered down like white snow. The blood drained from Vandahan's face. She stood stunned, eyes wide with incomprehension. Mom Chit stood there dazed even as two guards grabbed her arms. She didn't resist, remaining stiff as she was dragged away. Next, I plucked the expensive diamond ring from Ka Nhu's hand. Just as a glimmer of hope sparked in her eyes, I swung my arm and threw the ring straight out of the bar window. The bar was full of nooks and crannies, and with people passing by outside, no one knew where that multi-billion dong ring went, and I didn't care. Seeing the light in Ka Nhu's eyes extinguish as her body collapsed onto the floor, I suddenly burst into laughter. It was a laugh filled with bitterness, yet it felt incredibly liberating. Cannon laughing until tears pricked my eyes. Tham Chit, Vandahan, Tham Ka Nhu, who are you putting on that face of disappointment and pain for? Have I done anything excessive to you? Have you forgotten? Before, you were the experts at giving me a tiny glimmer of hope, only to immediately in front of countless people crush that hope with your own hands, trampling on my dignity and self-respect without mercy. I took a deep breath, my voice catching. If it weren't for the constraints of that unavoidable engagement, do you think I would have been so lowly and pathetic as to follow you around? I am also a prestigious young master. I have pride too. I need dignity. My heart is made of flesh and blood. Being insulted and trampled by you time and time again, how could it not hurt? But now, it's fine. I have moved past it all. In return, today it's your turn to experience those terrible feelings. This was just a gentle rejection. Why can't you handle it already? I sneered, my contemptuous gaze sweeping over the three tear-streaked faces. Cannon coldly and decisively concluding, right now, I feel that marrying your aunt first and falling in love later is a wonderful experience. If you still haven't given up, I don't mind using this uncle status to punish you many more times. If once isn't enough to make you remember, I'll do it a few more times. If once isn't enough to kill your feelings, I'll trample them a dozen more times. This is the lesson you so graciously taught me. After all, with that, I slowly turned and gently pulled Tham Yên Dinh into my arms. The coldness from moments ago vanished, replaced by pure doting. Ko Kan tenderly wife, it's getting late, and this bar is too filthy. Let us go home. You have a business trip tomorrow, leave the handling of them to the subordinates. Tham Yên Dinh leaning her head against my chest, nodding obediently, her voice raspy with fierce possessiveness. Let us go home. But, you coming on the trip with me tomorrow, okay? We've only been married a short time, I don't want to be away from you for even a single day. Saying this, Tham Yên Dinh glanced back, throwing Mong Chit to Han and Kai Nachu a look as sharp as a razor filled with warning and threat before walking out of the Nightshade bar arm in arm with me. After we left, a thick sense of resentment and regret clouded the minds of the three Tham sisters. They looked at each other, seeing total devastation in one another's eyes. However, Tham Yên Dinh had no intention of being lenient or giving them any further chance for delusions. That night, all three sisters were bound by guards and forced to kneel on the cold stone floor of the ancestral hall amidst a torrential downpour. A group of servants brought out numerous cardboard boxes. Inside were all the mementos, photos, documents, and lucky charms, everything related to the care I had shown them over the past decade. Before their very eyes, item by item was tossed into the incinerator. The flames roared. The three Tham sisters, ignoring their injuries, struggling frantically to save the mementos. No, don't burn them, please don't burn them. But they were pinned down by the guards, unable to move. In their wide, desperate eyes, they could only see the reflection of the red flames devouring everything. The entire Tham ancestral hall was enveloped in the acrid smell of smoke. The space was terrifyingly silent, save for the sound of mournful sobbing. Finally, the only things in the world that proved I had once loved them were reduced to ash. After the fire died out, the head guard stepped in front of the three sisters, his face a mask of emotionless stone. Head guard coldly, the head of the house told me to deliver a message. The feelings you once discarded like trash, she treasures as priceless gems. Objects have turned to ash, and so have people. Regret is useless, you have lost that chance forever. As he spoke, the guard pulled several photos from his coat and tossed them at their faces. They were candid photos taken during the business trip turned honeymoon I took with Tham Yên Dinh. In our free time, we had visited countless countries and cities to complete our wedding album. The radiant, blindingly happy smile of the young man in the photos was something the three of them had never seen. In their memories, I always appeared with a forced, humble smile meant to please them. Head guard leaning down to pick up a photo, sighing to himself, young Master Code doesn't actually like roses, that was just the eldest Mrs. preference. He has absolutely no interest in medicine or pharmaceuticals, but he studied them night and day for the second miss. He wasn't passionate about those mindless movies either, but because the third miss starred in them, he stayed up all night to watch. All that effort was only because he once cared for you. You had countless opportunities to be with him, but you arrogantly threw them away, never once taking the initiative to find out what he actually liked. The head of the house was a latecomer, but she knew how to seize the opportunity and how to cherish him. So, give it up, ladies. His honest words were like salt rubbed into their bleeding hearts. Unfortunately, the three of them had never been ones to listen to advice. Their minds were set on an obsession. Unless they were physically and mentally broken, no one could change their warped way of thinking. They didn't know how many days and nights they knelt in the ancestral hall through the rain. The wounds from their previous punishments had barely begun to scab over before being torn open again, becoming severely infected. When their bodies could truly no longer hold on and their consciousness drifted toward the brink of death, they finally gasped through their tears, trembling as they spoke the final words. The three Tham sisters, exhausted, whispering, Ko Kan is my uncle. From now on, I will never dare to have any thoughts about him again. As the last word left their lips, all three collapsed, fainting into the freezing puddles. The price for their arrogance finally came due. When she woke up in the hospital, Tham Mong Chit was stunned to receive a personnel transfer notice. She was stripped of all power and sent abroad to work as a lowly assistant for a small branch office. Just as she recovered enough to try and sneakily pack her bags to return home and find me, a group of burly guards blocked her door. Eldest Miss, the head of the house has given orders you are not permitted to set foot in the country for the next 10 years. This office needs your dedication, rest assured, and spend your retirement here. She had no choice, no money, no influence, and was forced to swallow the bitterness of staying in a foreign land. One departure led to 10 long years of solitude. Tham Dahan's fate was even more miserable. Tham Yên Dinh used her connections to have her sent directly to a secret state medical research institute. She was forced to sign a lifetime service contract. Except for special circumstances, she would likely never step foot in the outside world again. Even if she went out for work, she was always followed by numerous military personnel who were, in reality, monitors, and at curfew, she would be immediately returned to her invisible self. She completely lost her freedom, forced to sell herself to national medical projects until her dying breath. As for the superstar Thamka Nhu, she lived in a state of extreme labor exploitation. Tham Yên Dinh directed the entertainment company to force her to accept an endless stream of scripts, reality shows, and advertisements. Her schedule was so packed she barely had a moment to breathe or sleep. She tried to run away once, but before she could even leave the city, she was caught by Yên Dinh's people and dragged back to the set. No matter where she hid, she was caught like a bird in a glass cage, forced to work frantically like a mindless money-making machine with no way out. In the magnificent marital villa filled with warm sunlight, Tham Yên Dinh hugged me from behind, burying her face in the crook of my neck, inhaling my familiar scent. Her voice carried a sense of satisfaction and dominance, yet was overflowing with love. Tham Yên Dinh whispering into my ear, her eyes tender and lingering, "Good husband, don't worry. From now on, those three will never have the chance to appear and disturb our happiness again." I smiled softly, turning around to gently wrap my arms around her slim waist, giving her a deep, sweet kiss. The storms of the past had completely subsided. Koh Kannon had finally found a peaceful harbor fulfilled beside the woman willing to clear all obstacles for my sake.